There's some problems here. Sorry, big time.
I'm so upset. Oh my God.
All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur and Experiment with you guys. Fascinating show ahead for you all. I mean, the number one question is, are we going to stay in this war or are we going to end the war? So that's as big a question as there is on planet Earth, and we're going to tackle it today. Lots of information in both directions.
According to the president, the answer is yes.
Well,
to both.
To both, right.
At the same time.
Yeah, that's part of the problem. So more heinous Israeli attacks, of course, and they seem to be targeting Christian symbols and statues and churches, etc. I think that they've gotten to maximum arrogance to the point where Netanyahu had to try to reel it back, okay? So that's an interesting story a little bit later. And then Democrats, how are they dealing with the issue of Israel? We have a lot on that as well, and how it's actually literally affecting races as we speak. Which way is it affecting elections? That's a little bit later in the program, and it's super interesting. Casper.
Well, we begin with those updates on Iran, so let's take it away.
President Trump announced the seizure on Truth Social, saying the Iranian crew refused to listen, so our Navy ship stopped them right in their tracks by blowing a hole in the engine room. Right now, US Marines have custody of the vessel. The ship remains in US custody.
Motor Vessel Toska, vacate your engine room. Vacate your engine room. We're prepared to subject you to disabling fire.
I spoke with President Trump over the weekend, who told me if the deal isn't done, the deal that we made, then I'm going to take out their bridges and their power plants. He went on to say, if they don't sign this thing, the whole country is going to get blown up.
Iran appears to be unlikely to sign this thing, as Trump is demanding, and that's a big problem because the 2-week ceasefire between the United States and Iran is about to expire in just a few days. And based on the latest developments over the weekend, we're likely to jump right back into war. At least that's my read. Cenk, your 2 cents.
Yeah, so we were not sure about this last week, and Anna and I had slightly different opinions. And I'm in the same place this week. So I'm going to show you the structure of a deal that could be had, and that exists right now. And we can get that deal as early as tomorrow if both sides actually want to do it. And then I'm going to tell you what I think is more likely. And again, I'm not entirely sure, which is rare, but because of 2 super important factors here that are colliding.
I can't tell if it's your signature optimism that's making you think that peace is a possibility, or if you're just wrong. But I totally disagree with you. I think we're gonna jump right back into war. But let me give you the details and you guys can decide for yourselves, because we might have completely different interpretations of what's going on. So as you just saw from Fox News's Trey Yingst, the United States did seize an Iranian vessel over the weekend. So how the hell did we get here? Well, it turns out that on Friday, if those of you who are paying attention can remember, Iran had announced that the Strait of Hormuz would be opened for the remainder of the ceasefire for the free flow of oil, natural gas, cargo, you get the picture. But then President Trump announced that he would be maintaining the US blockade on all vessels traveling to and from Iranian ports. Iran saw that as a violation of the ceasefire because it's considered an act of war, which is why immediately after that, Iran decided to close the Strait of Hormuz again. Now, then Iran ended up shooting at 2 Indian flagged vessels to enforce their closure of the Strait of Hormuz, even though India had purchased oil from Iran, so they were kind of, they're making a point, but at the same time, they're the ones who sold the oil to India, so it was kind of a mess. Fox News' Trey Yingst also reports that at least 24 other vessels were turned around by the United States over the weekend, which is why if you pay attention to the oil markets, the price of oil spiked yet again. Now, Trump also escalated his unhinged threats regarding Iran's civilian infrastructure over the weekend. Here's a little taste of that.
I just spoke with President Trump for about 20 minutes, and he told me if Iran does not sign this deal, the whole country is getting blown up. He went on to say that bridges and power plants will be targeted if Iran does not sign this agreement. The president telling me that US Special Envoys Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff are heading to Islamabad, Pakistan for meetings on Tuesday, possibly into Wednesday, to try and get this agreement across the finish line. The president telling Fox News this is a very simple deal, but this is the last chance for the Iranians.
Now, part of the problem is both sides are digging their heels in what they're demanding, and they're refusing to move off of it entirely. So when it comes to Iran, they are unwilling to give up their uranium enrichment. At the same time, Trump is demanding zero uranium enrichment, even including enrichment for energy needs or for medical needs. So with two sides having their heels dug in on what they're demanding, it seems unlikely that a deal is gonna be signed anytime soon. However, even though this conflict with Iran seems to have escalated over the weekend, President Trump told Fox News' Maria Bartiromo that a deal with Iran would be signed in Islamabad today. Today's almost over, but here's Maria Bartiromo sharing her own skepticism.
US officials are gearing up for another round of talks in Pakistan tonight. The Iranians, however, still no response on this meeting. The state media is suggesting that Iran might not show up, although AP reported this morning that the meeting is on, and President Trump told me yesterday a deal will be signed tonight. Is this war over?
I think it's close to over, yeah. I mean, I view it as very close to over. You know what? If I pulled up stakes right now, it would take them 20 years to rebuild that country. And we're not finished. We'll see what happens. I think they want to make a deal very badly.
I think part of the problem is that President Trump doesn't understand Iran's culture or the fact that these threats have no impact on Iran, right? They remain unmoved in the face of Trump's ridiculous, unhinged threats, especially the threats toward its civilians and civilian infrastructure. One more quote from Axios. So apparently an anonymous administration official told the reporters over at Axios, and it's Axios, so take it with a grain of salt. Quote, he's over it, meaning Trump. He wants it done. He doesn't like Iran holding its control of the Strait over the Middle East. He doesn't like them holding this over our heads. He doesn't want to fight anymore, but he will if he feels he has to. Now, Iran is unwilling to give up control of the Strait of Hormuz. There is no real military option in taking control away from the Iranians. So Cenk, tell me why you think that there's still a possibility for peace.
Okay, so first, one of our members on TYT.com, Panic on Funkatron, already fun, says, I think Anna's correct. We've never seen Trump stand up to Israel. So you haven't even heard what I said yet. Hold on.
You're wrong, Cenk.
And no, I don't think that, I'm sure Trump's gonna get a deal done. In fact, earlier today, I was on with Mario Nafal, who's one of the larger shows on X, and I played the opposite role. He was saying a deal is definitely going to get done, and I was saying, I don't know about that. So now, why do I think a deal can get done? Because the structure of a deal already exists. Iran, according to sources about what's happened in negotiations so far, has said that they are willing to take enrichment out of the country. And there's negotiations over how long? Is it 2 years, 5 years, 15 years? But hey, we're haggling there. As long as they said yes to being able to take it out, that's really the key. Because it's just a matter of optics anyway, so that Trump can say, I got the enrichment out of the country. So it doesn't much matter if it's 5 or 15 years. So that a deal can be done on the Iranian side. That's great news. And apparently we have conceded that we might unfreeze some assets, including $20 billion that they have that we've frozen. Now, that's no skin off of our behind because it's actually their money that we froze. And by the way, if they did that deal, it would be nearly identical to the Obama deal that Trump got us out of in the first term, causing these cascading dominoes in the first place. So that's the core of a deal that can get done. So if Trump is really in a cold sweat panic as the mainstream media is describing it, and he's wants to desperately get out of this because he's stuck in this quagmire he doesn't want to be in, and his ratings have plummeted, his legacy's in a lot of trouble. And by the way, if he was a rational actor not tied to Israel, that's exactly what he would do. That's right? He would extricate himself, declare victory, even though he gave Iran at least half of what they wanted, etc. Right? So now, if he doesn't do that deal, I'll tell you the different excuses that they'll have. But there's only one reason he wouldn't do that deal, and that's no, he is under the control of Israel. Israel doesn't want to end the war. So if the war doesn't end, it'll be double, quadruple proof that Israel doesn't have influence in America. It completely controls our government, right? When it comes to foreign policy.
Yeah. No, I'm of the mindset that we're already there, and that's clear in now the multiple instances in which Trump tried to wind down this war. I mean, the announcement of the 2-week ceasefire was immediately followed by Israel carpet bombing Lebanon in order to jeopardize whether the 2-week ceasefire would actually happen. Now, luckily, to some extent, the ceasefire did hold, however fragile it might be. But I do want to talk a little more about the negotiations, right? So it doesn't really seem like Trump knows what he wants or what he's doing during certain moments. So for instance, okay, these talks in Islamabad. First, it was announced that Vice President JD Vance would be attending those meetings. Then we heard from the administration that Vance would not be going to the meetings. Now we're hearing that Vance is going to Islamabad and he will be leading the meetings. Okay, now I know that the Iranians have absolutely no faith or trust in the 2 Israeli assets who have been part of the negotiations so far, and that's of course Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. It remains to be seen whether they have a little more trust with JD Vance, especially since the last time there were negotiations, Vance had to call Trump repeatedly throughout, the entire 21 hours in order to get approval, and that appeared to be a bit of an obstacle in getting a deal done. Now, again, it is unclear whether the Iranians are actually going to attend these talks in Islamabad. Reuters reported that Pakistan's army chief, Field Marshal Asim Munir, has told President Trump by phone that the US blockade on Iranian ports is a major obstacle to resuming talks between the US and Iran in Islamabad. But there's no indication that Trump is going to lift that blockade. In fact, he jeopardized the opening of the Strait of Hormuz by keeping that blockade in place. Trump told Munir he would consider his advice, but so far, there's no sign the US intends to ease the blockade, which dramatically escalated on Sunday as US forces in the Gulf of Oman attacked and seized an Iranian cargo ship, which by the way, what are you doing, Trump? Already, I mean, you're complaining about, well, he's trying to pretend like the price of oil is not that bad and it's gonna come back down soon, but implementing that blockade on Iran is leading to a spike in oil prices, but he's doing it anyway. Real quick, then you have the Iranian president, Masoud Pezeshkian, who said that he will not send a delegation to Islamabad until that blockade is lifted. And of course, Trump is singing a different tune, likely to manipulate the oil markets. So real quick, I wanna go to this one last video. Let's go to 3. Oh, we don't have that? Okay, sorry. Okay.
US officials.
Okay, we don't. Go ahead, Cenk.
Okay, so I was looking up to see if they, to confirm what I heard on Mario's show, which is that and I heard it from someone else too, the Israelis did blow up a bridge again today that crosses the Litani River. But everybody kind of knows that Israel never listens to a ceasefire. It's just a question of, are they doing limited bombing or carpet bombing? So in a ceasefire, they usually do limited bombing rather than carpet bombing.
They violate the ceasefire every time.
Yeah, so, okay, now guys, if they're gonna scuttle the deal, they're gonna pretend that the Iranians were unreasonable and wouldn't give us 100% of what we wanted. So you'll know that we sabotaged the deal if we're talking about that we insisted on 0% enrichment and gave no ground on it. If we said, Iran has to hand over their foreign policy to Israel and they're not allowed to even talk to their proxies anymore, Iran would never agree to that. It's been an absurd request from day one. So then if we keep the blockade, well, then we don't have a ceasefire because we kept the blockade. So, and in fact, that blockade's one of the 2 most important things here, because Trump announced a ceasefire. Hey, both sides are gonna not close the strait anymore. And then he never lifts the blockade. So it looks like he's trying to undermine the thing that we're actually trying to do by not lifting the blockade. So that's clue number one in Anna's direction, that no, he doesn't mean any of this. If you meant it, you would have taken the blockade out, right? So at the end of all this, these are the things that you have to look for. Like, for example, if we say no compensation to the Iranians at all, they're not allowed to charge a toll, we're not gonna unfreeze their assets, we're not gonna do the bare minimum. Well, that means that we were unreasonable and we were purposely trying to sabotage the deal, right? If the deal doesn't happen. Now, the most important thing as to whether you're gonna get to peace or not is actually not Iran or America, it's Lebanon. So because the Iranians are insisting that Lebanon be part of the deal, that Israel withdraw from southern Lebanon, which they are trying to annex right now. And Israel might agree to some things regarding Iran, depending on how low they're running on interceptor missiles and Iron Dome, right? But what they are not going to agree to is not annexing southern Lebanon.
Okay, then let's keep the war going. Israel's running out of interceptors, so is the United States. So why doesn't Iran just stop wasting its time with these BS negotiations? Okay, you're not gonna give us an inch, then we're not gonna do anything. We're not gonna meet in Islamabad, we're gonna keep bombing.
Yeah.
Let's keep the war going until Israel cries uncle.
Yeah, so I understand that, and that's exactly what might happen soon. But right now, as things stand today, we're all gonna find out together, does Israel have huge influence, or are they the only influence on the White House, right? Meaning that they control. Because if they have huge influence, but not complete control, Trump's gotta get out of there with the deal that I described earlier. And he could then pretend, the war was short enough. It was about 6 weeks. Oil goes back down, the markets will be ecstatic, they'll go back up to 50,000. And even though we lost on the terms, and Iran wound up stronger afterwards, he could still pretend that we won. So it's sitting there right there for him. And so if he doesn't take it, that means no, he never had any choice. That he was always gonna go with what Israel said because they want Lebanon and they want to destroy Iran further.
Yeah, again, I'm already there. I think Israel has complete control over the Trump administration. There's every indication to prove that. I mean, of course, there are statements from Marco Rubio saying that Israel was going to attack, and so we had to take action. But aside from what they're saying overtly, think about what this war has done to the global economy, and more importantly for Trump, what it has done to Trump's popularity or lack of popularity, right? I mean, his approval rating is in the gutter, and this war is deeply unpopular with the American people. Gas prices are high, inflation is gonna get even worse. Oil and gas infrastructure, oil refineries in the Gulf region completely destroyed, which means even if the war ends today, gas prices, oil prices will continue to be incredibly high. I mean, it's just a complete and utter disaster. The US gets nothing out of this. We're spending more and more money in order to do it. And when I say spend money, going deeper and deeper into debt in order to fight Israel's war for them. So like, what would motivate Trump to do this aside from the Israelis either have blackmail on me or there's some other weird corrupt thing going on here that's persuading him to engage in this ridiculous war and not take a peace deal?
So I think the answer is we're about to find out whether the Israelis do have blackmail or don't. Because Anna, you're right. Without blackmail, I can see him getting talked into the war. We already know that he did. That Netanyahu came into the Situation Room and convinced them and said, they won't block the Strait of Hormuz. They're incompetent, dirty Muslims. They don't know anything. They're villagers. Don't worry, they have no capabilities. And Trump's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So like, it's possible that Trump is stupid enough, plus leans towards Israel enough through a series of campaign contributions, potential bribes in the real world, etc., that his proclivity is to go towards whatever Israel wants.
Right.
And he believed them. He was dumb enough to believe them that the strait wouldn't get closed and our Gulf allies wouldn't get attacked. But now that he's seen that they were wrong and he's been misled, if it was just leaning, just bribes, this is gonna destroy his legacy. He would get out of the war, right? The only way he doesn't get out of the war is if he thinks, yes, but if Israel releases that blackmail, my legacy is going to be destroyed even worse than if I stay in this war. You see what I'm saying?
I certainly do. I don't believe that Ghislaine Maxwell would have ended up in Club Fed, okay, and minimum security facility, had it not been for Trump feeling a little bit worried that maybe she's gonna release something about him.
And I don't want people to mistake what I'm saying. I actually lean towards you. Like, I think that it is more likely that we're going to stay in the war. And in fact, that's the challenge I gave in the earlier show I did today, because he was like, no way, we're definitely getting out of the war. And I'm like, no, I would lean towards staying in. And why? For the same exact reason. It's amazing that you brought that up. It's actually a story we have later in the rundown. But when asked about pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell, like, look, guys, if it was like, let's say, a Venezuelan gang member or whatever, would Trump say, I'll look into it?
Right. I wish him luck.
Yeah, no, of course he wouldn't be like, why would I pardon that? No, right? Instead, when they asked him about Ghislaine Maxwell, not only did he say, oh, I'll look into it, and he hasn't decided either way, but he also said, you know, I have the power to do it. I can do it. So he's obviously thinking about pardoning Maxwell. And if he's thinking about pardoning Maxwell, that means they probably have the blackmail.
Please get the Israeli operatives out of our government. That'd be nice. Anyway, we gotta take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about how Trump swears up and down that Israel is not the reason why he went to war with Iran.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Wow.
Members on TYT.com first. Kelly K. There's never been a ceasefire, whether it be Lebanon, Gaza, the West Bank, or Iran. Ongoing bombardments and Israel violating ceasefires minutes into them being announced. That is just factual, yes.
Can I ask a question? I want to ask ahead of time. So when inevitably resistance fighters attack Israeli settlers who stole land and settled in southern Lebanon, am I supposed to feel bad for the settlers?
I don't know what we're supposed to feel.
Because I'm not gonna feel bad for the settlers.
I mean, it's like asking to like, hey, a bunch of Hamas guys died on October 7th. Do you feel bad for the Hamas guys who died that day? I don't think that's even an appropriate question, right? Same thing for the settlers. The settlers are vicious terrorists. So you're asking me, do I have empathy for vicious terrorists?
I
don't know, it's a weird question, right?
I don't want anyone shaming me when another October 7th type attack happens. And I'm not here crying for the terrorists who stole land and settled on said stolen land.
The settlers are indisputable religious zealots, the worst religious fundamentalists in the world, bar none, including fundamentalist Christians or Muslims or Buddhists or Hindus, okay? They think that they are superior to the whole planet. They despise every other religion and race. They have no compunctions about murdering and stealing people's lands. There isn't anybody worse than the settlers in the West Bank. Asimov Prophet said, Cenk and Anna, what are you doing to celebrate 420 later? I think you could probably take a good guess at that.
You know.
Nerd Ferguson says he's treating the war like tariffs, on, off, on, off, on, off. You're totally right. Art Guy says, oh, I just remembered it's my 52nd birthday today. Happy to be spending the morning with my TYT peeps. Happy birthday, brother. We'll be back.
Mr. President, enough is enough.
Back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Also, Brooklyn Townhouse 30-day rental, which is a hilarious title. Comic Book Nerd out CBNO. I love these titles. Jake Capo 152. You guys are awesome for joining. They hit the join button below on YouTube. We really appreciate you guys. Oh, by the way, here, I'll do you a favor back. Seriously, if you're not thinking of doing a shop on or doing any kind of business online, then it's not relevant to you. But if you are thinking of doing that, you got to go with Shopify. So Shopify is who we use, and God, they're so helpful. They've got all the ready-made templates. They've got that shop pay button that makes checkout 1,000 times easier. We tried everybody else. Shopify is the right answer. So right now, sign up for your $1 per month trial today. It doesn't get better than that. Shopify.com/TYT. Shopify.com/TYT. It'll really help you with your store online. All right, Anna, what's next?
We got to talk about Trump, obviously in his feelings about what people have been saying about how easy it is to manipulate him. So let's get to the details. This morning, President Donald Trump insisted that Israel did not goad him into war with Iran. It was his decision and his decision only. But there's this thing called evidence, and there's plenty of it to counter what Trump is claiming. Before we get to that, your 2 cents.
Yeah, so this is like somebody walking into a room and going, "I'm not gay." Okay, all right, got you. So him saying, "I'm not controlled by Israel." All right, if you say so, brother. But as you're about to see in this story, there is ample evidence that he is.
Totally. So this morning, Trump wrote the following on Truth Social. Bear with me. Israel never talked me into the war with Iran. The results of October 7th added to my lifelong opinion that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. Did. Okay. He continues, I watch and read the fake news pundits and polls in total disbelief. 90% of what they say are lies and made up stories. And the polls are rigged, much as the 2020 presidential election was rigged. Just like the results in Venezuela, which the media doesn't like talking about. The results in Iran will be amazing, and if Iran's new leaders, regime change, are smart, Iran can have a great and prosperous future. Now look, the timing of these posts, interesting to say the least, because on Saturday, Trump actually acknowledged just how unpopular the war how unpopular Israel has become, right? The war is obviously very unpopular. The American people do not support it, but Israel is very unpopular. Probably for the first time in America since Israel was established, okay? So let's give you the details. He attempted to defend Israel in his statement, but he says, whether people like Israel or not, I don't, they have proven to be a great ally of the United States of America. How? He doesn't explain how exactly are they a great ally. They lied to you and manipulated you into thinking attacking Iran and succeeding in, installing a puppet regime would be easy to do, and clearly it was not easy to do, and now we're stuck in what appears to be a quagmire. He continues though, let me give you the rest of his statement. They are courageous, bold, loyal, and smart. They have blackmail on him, Cenk. They have blackmail on him.
Yeah.
And smart, and unlike others that have shown their true colors in a moment of conflict and stress, Israel fights hard and knows how to win. What do you mean by fights hard? The IDF excels in murdering unarmed civilians. They refuse to put boots on the ground in Iran and are urging the United States to do so on their behalf. What do you mean they're bold and they're strong? What?
No, these statements, Anna, went a long way in convincing me he is controlled by Israel. They were perfectly counterproductive. Now, why? All of these have Israeli talking points in them. So, October 7th, always mention October 7th, because why? We're the victims, Tell us about how Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. They're on the verge of having a nuclear weapon when Trump had said months ago that we've completely destroyed their nuclear facilities. He's back to the Israeli talking points about they're about to have them, right?
Right.
Has been throughout this war, but it's interesting that the guy who said they were totally destroyed has gone back to, no, they're about to start a bomb, which is perfect Netanyahu talking point. He mentions regime change, that's third Israeli talking point. Normally he says, we're not doing regime change, but he's back to that here. And then the last two posts were just like, right? He's gonna kiss Israel, not just on the left cheek or the right cheek, but also in the middle. Okay, so he's like, they're the greatest loyal spy. I love Israel. Wait, I thought you were trying to make a case that you're not controlled by Israel. And you just gave us nothing but Israeli talking points and how you love them and are on your knees groveling to them. So you couldn't make a better case for the opposite of what he was trying to prove.
I know, it's great, it really is. Now, what's going on here? Why did Trump out of nowhere decide to make this statement? I mean, look, one reason could be his plummeting poll numbers, especially as more and more accusations of Israel's control over Trump are being made. I'm gonna give you some additional evidence in just a minute, but first, take a look at this.
Donald Trump standing with the public here now, an approval rating in our poll here of just 37%. The last time this poll reported out a couple months ago, it was 39%. The big change from then to now, of course, is the launch of the war in Iran and everything that's continued to happen there. So down to 37% approval for Trump, and mention Iran, and look at this, a big driver of that clearly is how that war is going. Only a third of adults approve of Trump's handling of the war in Iran. There's a quarter quarter, I should say, 1/4 of Republicans say they disapprove. Those who call themselves Republicans.
The numbers are much higher for Republican voters under the age of 30. A majority of them are actually very much against this war in Iran. And I just want to remind you all of what Marco Rubio, our Secretary of State, had to say about our decision to go to war with Iran in the very, very beginning. Let's take a look.
It was abundantly clear that if Iran came under attack by anyone, the United States or Israel or anyone, they were going to respond against the United States. The orders had been delegated down to the field commanders. It was automatic, and in fact, it bared to be true. If we stood and waited for that attack to come first before we hit them, we would suffer much higher casualties. And so the president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed.
Yeah, the appropriate thing to do with a threat like that from Israel, instead of allowing them to, dictate US foreign policy, is I would respond to them by saying, we are cutting off all weapons and military support, all aid to Israel right now. That's what we're gonna do since you're making these threats. Real quick, Cenk, I just wanna remind you all of the reporting in the New York Times recently, which we covered at length, but I'm gonna give you the relevant excerpts from this piece. Let's go to graphic 7 and then 9. In the Situation Room, the Situation Room, Benjamin Netanyahu, a foreign leader, made a hard sell to the Trump administration, suggesting that Iran was ripe for regime change and expressing the belief that a joint US-Israeli mission could finally bring an end to the Islamic Republic. This is what he was telling Trump. Netanyahu and his team outlined conditions they portrayed as pointing to near certain victory. Iran's ballistic missile program could be destroyed in a few weeks. The regime would be so weakened that it could not choke off the Strait of Hormuz, and the likelihood that Iran would land blows against US interests in neighboring countries was assessed as minimal. Every single US base in the Gulf has been either severely damaged or destroyed. So is this the great benefit of having an ally like Israel? They give us crappy intel to drag us into ridiculous wars on their behalf. Is that why? Please.
Yeah, I asked AIPAC on X over the weekend because they're like, oh no, this is such a mutually beneficial relationship. When America gives us money, that actually helps America more than Israel. I was like, oh, that's fantastic. I like your logic. So why don't you give us the $320 billion back? That way Israel will be tremendously helped. That's your logic, right? Curiously, they didn't respond back because it's obvious propaganda and doesn't stand up to like 1 inch of critique. So now, to Anna's point about how the right wing is flipping, for Republicans over the age of 65, they're still totally on board for Trump and the war and anything Trump says. So not totally, actually, to be fair, he's lost nearly 20 points there. So meaning that he's only got 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10 is still a big number, but Trump had never come close to losing 20% of his older voters, right? The ones that are watching Fox News and have the thing in the back of their neck like, oh, Sean Hannity says I must love Israel and love war. Okay, I will now, right? So those guys.
Greatest ally.
Greatest ally ever. Give all my money to Israel because Trump and Hannity told me, right? So those are now like sometimes referred to as zombies. And now, but not just by us, but by right wingers who are younger. So in fact, under the age of 30, they're on our side saying that no, Israel, negative view of them, negative view of the war. And the difference between under 30-year-old Republicans and above 65-year-old Republicans is a shocking 35 points within the same party. A 35-point difference, that is enormous.
Yummy in my tummy.
Yeah, and the reason for that, as I've explained to you guys many times, is the media that they're consuming. So the older viewers that are right wing are still watching Fox News, so they're getting nothing but Israeli propaganda. That's what Fox News does. On the other hand, the younger folks are online. And today, when I put out a post, for example, saying, Iran, Obama's Iran deal was actually really good. A lot of Democrats, independents were like, yeah, you're actually right. It's a Republicans were like, no way, man, because they heard their whole life that
it was bad.
That it was a bad deal, etc. Right. But when I switched over to and I said, Fox News is brainwashing the older Republicans. That's the only reason why they're still supporting this war in Israel. Tons of right wingers were like, oh yeah, that's totally true. F Fox News. So they've caught on to, the younger right wing has caught on to Fox News being just straight up propaganda. And that's a beautiful thing to see in this country.
It sure is.
So these things move slowly. Given how slowly these ships usually move in politics, this is lightning speed. 35-point difference this quickly is amazing. So one more thing here, and this is really, really important. Do they have control or just influence Israel over the President Trump, right? So that's what we've been discussing all show, and including in this story. Well, one piece of evidence is no president threatens to do the obvious, which is what Anna said earlier. Hey, if you don't listen to us, we are going to take away your funding. I mean, we give you so much money, $4 billion a year. That used to be considered a lot, but now we're just shoveling money over them. Biden gave them 21 billion, Trump gave them an extra 13 billion. Congress just sent them more 1,000-pound bombs and armed bulldozers because they're totally owned by Israel. It's disgusting. Anyway, so neither Biden nor Trump would ever, and by the way, in my lifetime, no US president, including Obama, has ever threatened to take away their funding. Why wouldn't you use that threat when it's the most obvious threat to get them to do what we want, since we're funding them?
Yeah, you would think that we have no cards, but we're playing with a full deck. And for whatever reason, we haven't had a single leader who's willing, well, I shouldn't say that. Back in the day, I mean, Reagan dangled military aid to Israel when Israel wasn't complying. Even George H.W. Bush did that. George W. Bush did that, although not as aggressively. So as the years went on, Cenk, and I think as corruption became more and more baked in our system and foreign lobbying became, mainstay of our political system, you see less likelihood that our leaders would be willing to push back against Israel and their demands.
Well, I'll back that up even more by saying Eisenhower was pretty strict with them, that they're not to get nuclear weapons, etc. And then so was Kennedy, until of course he was assassinated. And then Lyndon Johnson immediately was like, yeah, you can get nukes. So like getting soft on Israel started exactly at JFK's assassination. I'm not making any insinuation, I'm just telling you literally what happened in history.
We can speculate.
Right. So, but whatever it might be, our presidents in my lifetime have been totally neutered and like, oh golly gee, I don't know what leverage we have on Israel. I mean, Barack Obama, you're an incredibly bright guy who was the head of Harvard Law Review. You couldn't figure out what leverage you had over the Israelis? No, this is how a country acts when it's occupied and controlled by a different country.
There are some political, I don't want to say leaders because he's not quite a political leader yet, but there are some members of Congress who are starting to feel comfortable threatening US aid to Israel. Congressman Ro Khanna happens to be one of them. Take a look.
All Trump did is listen to Netanyahu. That's his entire foreign policy. And you know what? I resent the fact that Israel is going to tell the United States what to do. The American president should call the shots in this country.
Yeah. Look, somebody on X today was like, am I the only one who thinks Ro Khanna is obviously presidential material? Why is no one talking about that at scale, right?
He's winning me over.
Yeah.
I will say that. Like the fact that he goes into, I don't want to say enemy territory, that's too strong. The fact that he's willing to go to Fox News and make his case like that, especially against someone like Maria Bartiromo, love to see it. Keep doing that. The fact that he's open to going on any show, regardless of how big or small the audience happens to be. I really respect that. I mean, how difficult has it been to get so many progressive members of Congress to come on independent shows and make their case for anything? Ro Khanna will go on any show, and I love that about him.
No, it's even more than that, Anna, because okay, I mean, sure, they should definitely go on independent shows. You're 100% right about all that. But for the moment being, forget that. Just go on the Sunday talk shows, right?
100%.
Go on television and oppose the war. Why is that hard for Democrats to do now, let alone progressives? Why isn't there 12 progressives on each show making the case against the war? So like the fact that Ro Khanna appears to be the only guy fighting for us is at this point becoming glaring. And by the way, so it was Bill Madden who said, and he wrote an article to go, I don't get it, it should obviously be Ro Khanna, right? The reason why he doesn't get it is, and why the establishment doesn't even include him in half the presidential polls, is because the establishment doesn't want Ro Khanna.
No, they don't.
So that's why they interview him. To be fair, they do. He goes on those shows, and probably because he's the only Democrat who shows up, they're like, okay, since you're the only guy, all right, come on.
Yeah.
So they've been fair to him in that sense, but leaving him out of the polls, leaving him out of the conversation. MS Now did choose your fighter for the 2028 potential candidates. They had 24 people on there, didn't put Roe on. Why? Because MS Now is a corporate channel and they only want corporate and Israel-loving Democrats. So this is the fight that's gonna happen going forward.
100%. Okay, let me just say, MS Now, it kind of gives you a hint into the kind of bipartisanship they like to celebrate versus the actual bipartisanship that yields results that they do not celebrate. Ro Khanna is one of the only Democratic members of Congress who doesn't give a damn about signaling his, ideological purity. If he thinks reaching across the aisle and working with Republican lawmakers is going to yield results that benefit the American people, like, I don't know, getting the release of the Epstein files, he's gonna do it. And I personally really, really respect that.
Look, super last thing on that.
And it's not BS, sorry, interrupt. It isn't the kind of BS bipartisanship that happens to screw Americans over on behalf of corporate or moneyed interests. That's the kind of bipartisanship MS Now likes to celebrate.
Yeah, so the last thing I was gonna say, look, it's kind of obvious to us if Tom Massey on the Republican side is gonna help us release the Epstein files, which puts, well, first of all, on its own, forget the political implications, right? I actually care about the victims, we do deeply on this show, and they should get justice. I care deeply about justice. That's why I named it Justice Democrats. Justice is coming. I'm obsessed with it, right? And then on top of that, politically, it's a giant win for the Democrats and the anti-Trump forces. So this brother comes across the aisle to help us on that because why? He's an honest guy. You might disagree with him on other stuff, but thank God he's did that. Marjorie Taylor Greene did that, etc. So then I was wondering before, and I figured it out, like, why didn't other Democrats, just on the politics of it, jump onto the Epstein files until Roe and Massey had created unstoppable momentum, and they were like, oh yeah, us too, right? So why didn't they join the press conferences and the initial fight? Then I realized, oh, that takes courage in Washington to work with any Republican, because the conventional wisdom is if a Democrat works with any Republican, even if the Republican is helping us 100% on that particular issue, no, that's it, you're canceled and etc. And while everyone's hiding, going, no, I don't want to help Massey release the Epstein files, I'll get yelled at. Roe was like, wait, we're releasing Epstein files? I'm in,
I love
right?
it.
And you know what that is? That's courage. That's the courage to lead.
And it's forging the types of alliances and relationships necessary to get the job done. And that's what we need to see more of in Congress. Anyway, we gotta take a quick break. When we come back, we'll check in with the economy, especially as tensions escalated over the weekend between the United States and Iran. How is that impacting the oil markets? I'll tell you when you come back.
Let's go to Twitch first. SDJ1 says US Navy literally committed a war crime there on camera. Yeah, beyond that, brother, I was worried that they're showing how the helicopters are repelling our Marines onto the ship. Like, don't show that, because next time they'll be ready with RPGs. Like, we keep showing important intelligence on TV just so we can brag, oh, we're so good at this military stuff, right? So anyway, Green New Dealer Dragon says USA is the best pirate fleet on earth. That is kind of what we're doing. Canadian Skull, to be fair, the Iranians are also doing the same thing. Canadian Skull Dragon says maybe they should smoke some more weed instead of blowing stuff up. Here to that, the world would be a much better place. YTP Renew says leave it to a disgusting chicken hawk like Trump to think Iranians are dirty enough cowards to meet the threats of genocide with appeasement, or to think that's a good thing. That's a great point. The reason is Trump always does projection. So he thinks, well, I'd be a coward and I would give up immediately. So he assumed the Iranians would be cowards like him and give up immediately. In fact, in another story today, I was reminded of how he was bragging about how he landed in Iraq in his first term to eat the meal with the troops, but they landed with no lights on, and how scared to death he was. And he kept asking over and over, are we gonna be okay? Are we gonna be okay? Are we gonna be okay? Like, he's such a coward. And that's why he assumes others are, and that's a miscalculation. Peachy Sherry says he's so flippant with his answers. He doesn't know squat. He doesn't care. He's truly the worst. Agreed on every count there. And then I am out of time. Okay, more next time. We'll be right back.
We had it. We had H2O.
Okay, back on TYT, Jake and Anna with you guys. Fun announcement today. We have Member Mondays today. So what does that mean? We're starting it today. What does that mean? After the show, I'm gonna do a Revolution episode, but include you guys in it. Everybody watches, but members get to call in. Now, normally I tell you how easy things are. Honestly, on this one, you gotta take a minute with it. So if you wanna call in today, go to tyt.com/call. and figure out how to do it, because you got to do it through Discord. Don't get intimidated, but it'll take you a minute. tyt.com/call. So everyone can watch, but only members get to call in. I want to interact with you guys and figure out how to lead this political revolution together. And by the way, we're now on Amazon Prime, so that's awesome. And so you can check out our 24-hour channel on Amazon Prime as well. All right, Casper.
Let's check in with the economy.
When do you think it's realistic for Americans to expect that gas will go back to under $3 a gallon?
I don't know. That could happen later this year. That might not happen till next year.
Well, President Donald Trump has now publicly rebuked that statement from US Energy Secretary Chris Wright, calling it totally wrong. Now, Cenk, I don't think Chris Wright is wrong. In fact, I think he should have gone even further in warning the American people about how disastrous this war with Iran has been when it comes to energy needs and the price of oil and gas. But before we get to all those details, your 2 cents.
Yeah, I want to talk about the economic calamity that will ensue if we restart the war, because that is, right now, Anna's going to tell you about how bad it is. I think it can get way worse. And then I want to point out one thing about Wright. I think that Trump might have flipped out about what he said, Anna, because maybe Wright knows something we don't know, that the war is going to last longer. And that's why Trump was like, no, don't ruin the element of surprise, okay? Gas prices could go down any minute. Well, we'll see.
So let's give you some more context, especially when it comes to this interview on CNN with Jake Tapper. So during the conversation, Wright stated that the Trump administration has handled energy prices fantastically. Let's take a look at what he has to say.
The president said today, the US loses nothing with the Strait is closed, but gas prices have surged more than $1 a gallon for regular unleaded just since the war began. So it's not true, right? I mean, the US does lose something.
Putting this 47-year conflict to an end and preventing Iran from getting nuclear weapons, of course, has come with short-term disruption. I think we've managed it fantastically, though. Here we are in the middle of the largest interruption in flow of energy ever, and gasoline prices peaked a week ago, about $1 below the peak during the Biden administration, and that was just a Biden administration attack on the oil and gas industry.
I gotta say, I really can't stand these crusty ass liars, okay? And I'm gonna give you the details on how deep the lie is in just a minute. But later, Wright admitted that gas prices could stay high for an entire year. And spoiler alert, he's actually downplaying how bad this is. Take a look.
When you were on the show March 8th, I asked you when gas prices would go under $3 a gallon for regular unleaded. You said, quote, in the worst case, this is a week's, this is not a month's thing. That was 6 weeks ago, so we're still within the weeks realm, but we're 2 weeks away from the month's thing. When do you think it's realistic for Americans to expect that gas will go back to under $3 a gallon?
I don't know. That could happen later this year. That might not happen till next year. But prices have likely peaked and they'll start going down. Certainly with a resolution of this conflict, you'll see prices go down. Prices across the board on energy prices will go down.
But it might not be under $3 a gallon until 2027.
Under $3 a gallon is pretty tremendous in an inflation-adjusted terms. We had that in the Trump administration, but we hadn't seen that in inflation-adjusted terms for quite a long time. We'll get back there for sure.
No. Okay. So look, apparently the pretty little story that Wright told while on CNN didn't go far enough for Trump, who knows that this is a huge political liability for him and the Republicans. So in a phone interview with The Hill, Trump stated no, I think Wright's wrong on that, totally wrong. When asked by The Hill when he believes gas prices will drop, Trump said, as soon as this ends, referring to the Iran war, by the way, tensions escalated over the weekend, and there's really no indication that a deal will be signed with Iran anytime soon. And for context, the graph you're looking at just shows you how much the price of gas per gallon has gone up. So it illustrates the average price of gas per gallon in the US from April 2025 through the end of March of this year. And as you can see, there's a pretty significant spike there. Prices reached their highest point so far this year at $4.16 per gallon earlier this month, and now are at $4.05 per AAA data. In California, obviously, with all the extra taxes, it's much higher than that. We're now paying like $6, $7 a gallon, which is pretty disastrous. So thanks, Trump. But Cenk, I want to get your thoughts, and before, and then after, I'm going to tell you why, even if the war ended today, these high gas prices are here to stay, at least for a long time.
Yeah. So, guys, there's one thing that Wright said that's relatively true. He said we managed this pretty well, and why do I say that's relatively true? Because Trump has done all these like misdirections and tacos and all this stuff. So, and it's managed to quiet the markets down, right? In the beginning, what happened was oil shot up and the markets crashed. But then eventually Trump convinced the markets that, oh, it's the victory's around the corner and peace is right around the corner. So the markets are totally back up thinking, yeah, oil is bad, but it's temporary because Trump says this is almost over and we all believe him. So they've actually not felt the pain as much since the beginning of the war, right? So what's going to happen if the war continues though, is that the markets are gonna realize, oh, we got played again, right? And so by the way, there's a person that is making a tremendous amount of money betting on the markets right before Trump's announcements.
Guys, there is serious insider trade, brazen insider trading happening right now and market manipulation happening right now. It's sick. Like, it's sick that this is going on and nothing is being done about it.
Yeah, so now they could be doing the market manipulation to keep things going, et cetera, but and to make money off of it. But it's having an ironic counterproductive element to it, which is that Trump's looking at the markets and going, it's not that bad, right? So that might lead him to go, oh yeah, let's keep going. And if we keep going, then the market's gonna realize they're wrong and the bottom's gonna fall out. Why is the bottom gonna fall out? Because if this war is going longer, if we start bombing their civilian infrastructure or we put in ground troops, that means the price of oil is not going to be abated anymore, because then peace is definitely not around the corner and it'll skyrocket. Not just above $100, but above $120, right? And when that happens, what you're not seeing so far, guys, is, and we're reading about it because it's our job, there's a little bit of a panic going on in South Korea because they're running low on energy. And in fact, that's what's making them furious about Israel, and they're putting out statements against Israel. Israel's catching feelings. Good. In India, they're having significant shortages, so the whole world is waiting on bated breath here. Is this war going to be over and then we're going to begin to slowly recover, although it's going to have issues like Anna's going to tell you? Or, oh my God, are we quadrupling down and destroying the global economy? So that's what's going to get determined in a couple of days here. So you're watching this at a pivotal moment in time.
I just want to know how much Germany regrets decommissioning their nuclear power plants, but we'll check in with that later. For now, though, I want to explain why, even if the war were to end today, gas prices are not going to come down. What you're paying at the pump is not going to come down anytime soon. And that's because this war has led to significant damage to oil refineries, oil fields. You have gas gas infrastructure that's being completely destroyed. So I'll give you just a little taste, okay? Literally dozens and dozens of oil and gas facilities, infrastructure totally damaged or destroyed. So for instance, let's give you specific examples. In the UAE, one of the biggest refineries in the world suffered multiple fires caused by falling debris from air defense interception. Abu Dhabi's government said on April 5th. Saudi Arabia, this is just refineries, by the way. A drone fell on a refinery that's half owned by ExxonMobil. This happened on March 19th. Also in Saudi Arabia, units halted at the Satorp refinery after incidents on April 7th through the 8th. It used to refine nearly 460,000 barrels a day. It is currently refining nothing, because of the extensive damage. At the Gulf Petrochemical Industries Co. in Bahrain, for instance, some operational units caught fire after drone attacks on April 5th. Like this is damaged infrastructure that's gonna take a long time to fix, right? There's more. There's the Kuwait National Petroleum Company and Petrochemical Industries facilities, which suffered significant damages as emergency and fire response teams worked to contain fires at several sites. KPC said on April 5th. Those attacks followed hits on KPC's headquarters. Those were just refineries. Then you have gas facilities. Qatar Energy said LNG facilities were hit by the Iranian missiles, triggering fires that caused extensive damage. Like, guys, this damage is going to cause higher prices at the pump for a long time. So regardless of the cute little stories you're hearing from various members of the Trump administration, understand that they're lying to you. And while we might end up paying higher prices here in the United States, you're right, Cenk, other countries that were more reliant on energy from the Gulf region are really suffering. And they're now rationing energy, rationing gas and oil. Like, it's just a complete and utter disaster. And I think that you'll probably be very unsurprised by the fact that when it comes to Trump's polling numbers and how Americans are feeling about this, they're pissed. Take a look.
More recently, the cost of gasoline, what they're paying at the pump here. Add these two numbers together, very somewhat. 2/3, 65% say that the cost of gasoline is a serious, in some way, problem for them and for their families right now.
The market is an international market, okay? There is no, we're oil and gas independent here in the United States. It's all about supply and demand on the global stage, and there is less supply, so it's going to continue being a problem regardless of what anyone in the administration has to tell you.
Yeah, so let me add three more problems economically. Number one, wherever they have depots, they filled them up in the Gulf and in Iran and other places in the Middle East. And then they've stopped drilling. So the problem is when you stop drilling, it takes a while to restart the drilling. So that's why gas prices, even if we stop now, are going to continue to be higher for quite some time. The full depots ironically hurt because it prevents, because you can't drill because you have nowhere to put the oil. The depots are filled. So that's a part of the problem, smallest part of the problem. And then you go to the second layer of it. So when India, South Korea, Europe, et cetera, have these huge energy problems, it also hurts the rest of their economy, which then ricochets around the world because it's a global economy and hurts our economy. So it depresses all of the products at the same time, right? And then finally, the biggest problem if we continue the war is, if we hit Iran's oil and gas facilities, well, again, those are gonna take 5 years to rebuild. You're doing permanent damage to the price of gas, or at least for as far as the eye can see. And Iran doesn't have a ton of money to rebuild those facilities, so it might take even longer depending on what kind of deal we come up with if we ever get to the end of this war. But Iran will also counter by hitting, and they've said this very, very clearly, there's no question they're gonna do it, oil and gas facilities in the Gulf. In which case, oh my God, then we're going to, price of oil going past $150, because now where the Middle East is, not only do we have a temporary but significant problem in the blocking of the Strait of Hormuz, so the oil can't get out. Now they can't even make the oil because their oil facilities are destroyed and are going to take years and years to rebuild. Continuing this war will be such an epic debacle that it should be unthinkable. The only reason why it's in doubt now as to whether we're going to continue is because there's one country demanding that we continue, and that's apparently the most powerful country in the world, that's Israel.
That's right. All right, let's take a break. When we come back for the second hour, a lot more to get into. We'll talk a little bit about the religious backlash to the multiple wars that Israel is involved in, including in southern Lebanon. I don't care if you're Christian. In fact, I will fight for you to have your religious liberty and practice your Christianity. I believe in that. I don't believe in Christianity, which means that you do not get to dictate the way I live my life based on your religion. I don't care what the Bible says. You have every right in the world. All those women who identify with your religion have every right in the world to not get an abortion, to not take birth control, but they do not have the right to dictate my life and what I decide to do with my body. I don't care about your goddamn religion. I'm so tired of having nonstop conversations about what the Bible says. You live your life in the way that you interpret the Bible. Again, I don't care, but you don't get to take the Bible and tell me, well, the Bible says this in this chapter, in this verse. I don't care. I don't care, I don't believe in it, and I have the right, based on our Constitution, to not believe in it.
No part of Gaza has been left unscathed. Ain't a whole lot left. I don't know why they need any more bombs. Let us be clear. The United States provided $18 billion in military aid to Israel. Netanyahu, indiscriminate bombardment, have killed more than 50,000 civilians, 60% of whom are women, children, paramedics, and journalists. All of this is against basic human decency. You don't starve children with absolutely no humanitarian aid getting into Gaza. It is a war crime. It is illegal for the United States government to provide Israel with more offensive weapons. History will not forgive us.
We've been on our phones too much. I feel like we just need to touch grass or something.
I told you. I mean, you know what? Let's actually do it. Let's touch the grass. Whoa. Andrew Yang? It's not racist, right? It's him.
Yes, it is I, Andrew Yang, out here giving money away as usual.
Wait, but literally?
Do you use a phone? Noble Mobile will cut your wireless bill in half every month, and you get paid even more if you log off, look up, and touch grass.
Oh, I actually have some grass if you...
I don't think that's the kind of grass.
Not that kind of grass, unfortunately.
Whoa, wait, what the...
Whoa.
I guess that kind of grass works too. All grass works.
All grass and we get cash?
Wait, did you see that, babe?
Noble Mobile, make it rain, girl, make it rain, make it. That didn't rain so good, but now it's raining good.
Corruption, injustice, the system is rigged against you. Every day we're blasted by a flurry of terrible news from every angle, which can make it challenging to stay positive and know how to fight back. The Damage Report is your solution. I'm Johnny DeRola, and my daily morning show cuts through the noise and exposes the real damage being done to our country, the world, and how we can fight back against it. Corporate greed crushing workers, we'll name names. Politicians selling you out for their corporate overlords, we've got the receipts. Climate disaster, economic collapse, the rise of fascism. No spin, no establishment talking points, just the truth that you need to survive and resist. But it's not all doom and gloom. We'd love to have you join the Dragon Squad, our community of positive-minded activists who turn the day's news into positive action. With new episodes every weekday, listen to The Damage Report to get honest news, unflinching commentary, and daring coverage you won't find anywhere else. Listen to The Damage Report on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, because understanding the damage is the first step to fixing it.
Corn Pop was a bad dude.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys on the online news show. All right, let's have fun. Let's do more news.
I don't know how fun this is, but we're gonna do more news. Let's get to it.
I mean, this is hugely embarrassing for the IDF. Prime Minister Netanyahu came out with a very strong statement this morning saying he was shocked by that image in which you see a soldier appearing to use something like an axe or a pickaxe to smash into the face of the statue of Jesus in a Christian village in the south. The Israelis have gone out of their way to say, look, this doesn't represent the IDF. It's a multi-faith country, and it's something that they condemn and that they're investigating.
The Israelis and the IDF in particular are facing some pretty harsh criticism, rightfully so, after an IDF soldier decided it would be a great idea to post an image of an IDF soldier destroying a statue of Jesus Christ in southern Lebanon. Now, Cenk, before we jump into the details, I thought the Israelis just hated Muslims. Looks like they also hate Christians. Weird.
Interesting.
Weird.
So in this story, we're going to show you all their attacks against Christians, and there's a lot. But also, I want to talk about how Israel's backtracking, as they're doing here, very unusual, is directly related to how much attention that issue is getting. Because you'll see later stories that you've never heard of. Since they didn't get any attention, even though they're much worse than this one, Israel held no one accountable, did absolutely nothing, and never apologized. And you'll see how, I mean, killing priests and things along those lines.
In double tap strikes.
Yeah, in the most vicious way. So we'll explain that as we go.
So here's another look at the image of the IDF soldier destroying the Jesus statue, which went viral over the weekend. And to your point, Cenk, that's why Israel probably felt the need to respond to the backlash. Now, according to the Jerusalem Post, the incident allegedly occurred in the village of Debel in southern Lebanon. The vandalism took place in a Maronite Christian village, which is strange. You know, you would think that a Hezbollah stronghold wouldn't allow for a Christian village, considering how vicious and terroristic they are. But apparently this Christian village existed, didn't have any problems until the Israelis came along. Now, it's one of the few villages where residents have remained even despite Israeli occupation. And as you can imagine, the image sparked a massive outrage online, followed with, fake calls for investigation by the Israelis. And the reason why I say it's fake is because we've heard this before. This isn't our first rodeo. Israel does something wrong, everyone is outraged, and then they claim they're gonna do an investigation, everyone forgets about it, and then we move on. And by the way, we have some statistics on their investigations in just a moment. But here's the statement from the IDF. They write, following the completion of an initial examination regarding a photograph published earlier today of an IDF soldier harming a Christian symbol, it was determined that the photograph depicts an IDF soldier operating in southern Lebanon. So they're confirming that this is in fact a real image. The IDF views the incident with great severity and emphasizes that the soldier's conduct is wholly inconsistent with the values expected of its troops. Oh, I've seen what's expected of the troops, and this is hardly inconsistent. The incident is being investigated by the Northern Command and is currently being addressed through the chain of command. Appropriate measures will be taken against those involved in accordance with these findings. Now, Netanyahu acted shocked and chagrined. He said he was outraged as well. Let's go to graphic 5 here. He says, yesterday, like the overwhelming majority of Israelis, I was stunned and saddened to learn that an IDF soldier damaged a Catholic religious icon in southern Lebanon. I condemn the act in the strongest terms. Military authorities are conducting a criminal probe of the matter and will take appropriately harsh disciplinary action against the offender. You know, what's really interesting, Cenk, is I saw some IDF videos over the weekend as well, including a video out of the West Bank that featured IDF soldiers sexually assaulting a little boy who couldn't have been older than 5 or 6 years old. IDF soldier unzips his pants and then drags the boy's head to his crotch. That didn't spark enough outrage for the Israelis to call for an investigation, I guess. But anyway, back to you.
Yeah, so Christians are a huge problem for Israel. Why? Because they've done overwhelming propaganda in America, mainly through mainstream media, declaring all Muslims evil terrorists. And so since there aren't a lot of Muslims in America, that was relatively easy to pull off. Oh my God. And they got everybody all excited, like, oh my gosh, Sharia law is gonna take over Tulsa, Oklahoma. Like absurd, over the top propaganda, but ubiquitous, not just on Fox News, almost everywhere, so that it worked. Now, but you can't convince Christians, and this country is at least 70% Christian, that they themselves are terrorists. That's much harder. And they need America because we're their piggy bank. And we fight all their wars for them. We give them hundreds of billions of dollars, so they can't make Christians upset. Now, the problem is there are also Christians that live in the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and Lebanon. In fact, there's a lot in Lebanon. So they want to take the Christian land as much as they want to take the Muslim land. They don't really care if you're Muslim, Buddhist, or Christian. They're in the expansion of their country. That's what they're doing. It's called the Greater Israel Project. And that's why they're in southern Lebanon destroying statues of Jesus. So the only time that they ever come close to acknowledging and apologizing is when it's already an international scandal. But if you didn't see it, then they don't care at all. So I'm gonna fast forward to one particular fact here, and then Anna will give you the rest as the attacks on Christians. Father Pierre El Rai, it was a priest in southern Lebanon in El Khalaya, where there's a strong Christian community. And Israel, of course, started bombing them because they're in southern Lebanon and Israel wants that land. So they don't care who lives there. They're gonna murder everyone there or scare them enough to drive them out, as they did in 1948, 67, and over again. Kill enough people so that you can ethnically cleanse them off the land and drive them out. So there's a bombing. Father Pierre, being a good guy, he's a priest, rushes over to the house of fellow Christians that were hit there. Red Cross also shows up. So Israel waits, and once the priest and the emergency workers and the medical helpers show up, boom, double tap, and they kill Father Pierre El Rai. And so of course somebody's been arrested over that. No, I'm kidding. No one's ever arrested. There's never any accountability since America and Christians across the world didn't make that much of a big deal out of it. Oh, who cares? It's just a priest. I care. I think a lot of Christians care.
Of course.
But our media is like, shut up. You're all anti-Semites for caring about a priest being murdered by Israel.
They just won't cover it. They bury the story.
They
pretend like the real problem are those dangerous Muslims. I mean, how many segments has Ghislaine Maxwell done about like, oh, there's Sharia law in Texas? I'm sure there is, Ghislaine.
Yeah, of course,
sure
and Tapper and Bash and all of them. The real problem is the Muslims. So when Israel keeps murdering priests, which I think is way worse than the statue, that's a real human being in a double tap strike, right? Core evil, but our press,
Which makes the second half of Netanyahu's statement so enraging, because he wants to deflect from the wrongdoing of the IDF soldiers and instead continue fear-mongering about those scary Muslims. He says, while Christians are being slaughtered in Syria and Lebanon by Muslims, wait, let's pause for a second. Oh, you mean the new regime in Syria that you guys wanted? Remember when you got the United States to arm Al-Qaeda or Al-Qaeda offshoots in Syria in order to topple Bashar al-Assad because Bashar al-Assad was friendly with Iran?
I remember that.
You guys did that with our help. Congratulations, but let me continue. The Christian population in Israel thrives, unlike elsewhere in the Middle East. Not true at all.
They get spit on, literally.
No, even worse than that. Okay, there's the Armenian quarter. Armenians are overwhelmingly Christian. They deal with physical attacks and assaults from unhinged Israelis on a regular basis. I want to give you some more examples, actually. So let's go to this post by Steve Sweeney, where he says in November of 2024, Israeli soldiers from the Golani Brigade desecrated the St. Mema church in the Christian village of Der Mimas, southern Lebanon. Soldiers staged a mock wedding ceremony, danced and simulated sex acts inside the church. The Israeli military said the conduct was contrary to its values. And if you think there's no way that happened, this is totally made up, he has receipts. He posted video. Let's take a look.
הגענו לערב הזה אחרי כמה זמן של זוגיות? כאן בטקס הזה. הרי אתה, כאן, תשים את כל... אני מתנגד! אני מתנגד! שקט! שקט! סטולין, אני אוהב אותך. אני אוהב אותך, סטולין.
So there's an example for you right there, and there's more. So Sweeney, well, let's take a look at this next video. We'll keep my mic up so I can explain to the audience what's happening. So this is additional footage from Steve Sweeney, a reporter, who's done extensive reporting in Lebanon, and was, by the way, targeted by an IDF strike recently, and luckily was not hit. But this is footage of a church that was destroyed by Israel in Lebanon in October of 2024. At least 8 people were killed in these attacks. And let's go to one more example, another video. Take a look.
We're in the small southern Lebanese border village of Sarada, and I want to show you how badly this church has been absolutely desecrated by the Israeli forces. You can see here that there's a bunch of graffiti on the wall, but I think actually that's probably the least offensive thing that we have seen in this church.
And it's not just in Lebanon. Why don't we actually take a look inside Israel? The Religious Freedom Data Center documented at least 201 incidents of violence against Christians, primarily committed by Orthodox Jews, targeting international clergy or individuals displaying Christian symbols between January of 2024 and September of 2025. So in a year and a half, 201 incidents involving violence against Christians.
That's weird. It's all the things they warned us the Muslims were going to do to Christians. It looks like Israelis are doing to Christians.
Strange.
Oh, it's almost like every Israeli accusation is a confession. So Netanyahu, what does he do in that response that Anna read you? Okay, maybe we're desecrating a bunch of Christian places and murdering Christians, but it's the Muslims. Muslims do it worse. So he's constantly deflecting. Remember, everyone, hate the Muslims, but we're so worried about anti-Semitism and bigotry. No, you're not worried about bigotry at all. You just want supremacy. And so you think that we should all serve you. And now I say that, and that's how a lot of people would catch feelings over it. So let me explain. The majority of Jews, especially in America, don't believe that they're the chosen people. And they just think that that's some sort of like, hey, we're chosen to carry a burden or whatever, things along those lines. At least every Jewish person I know, and I know a lot, right? So, but we know mainly liberal Jewish folks in America. Now, a lot of them don't know any Israelis either, right? And what they don't realize is that the culture in Israel has slipped. It's not like Jewish people across the world and in this country. So a lot of them are secular and liberal like us, right? But more of them these days are religious fundamentalists and yes, supremacists. So for example, the settlers do believe they're the chosen people and they don't think it's symbolic. They think, no, we were chosen by God and we are superior to you. So you're like cattle to us, whether you're Muslims or Christians, you're just on our land and we're here to murder you as God directed us, because they're deeply fundamentalist and deeply supremacist. Now, are those people, some of those people also inside the IDF? Absolutely, obviously, right? And are they part of Israeli leadership? Of course, Ben-Gvir, Smotrich are two of the biggest fundamentalists there is, let alone the Katz, who's their defense minister. So they've taken over a giant chunk of Israeli society, government, and military. That's why you're seeing what you're seeing here. It's not enough to destroy the churches, you have to desecrate the churches. And what you might not have seen is in Gaza, they purposely dug up the graves of all of the other religions. There's Jews buried in Gaza, they left those graves alone, but under the pretense of looking for hostages, they desecrated Muslim and Christian grave sites
so disgusting.
Just to rub it in on how superior they are than the rest of us. Now, don't hold that against random Jews that don't believe that, right? But giant portions of the IDF and the Israeli government does believe that, and that's why you're seeing the atrocities that you're seeing against Christians as well as Muslims.
So let's talk a little bit about Israel's internal review process, shall we? Because they claim that they're gonna do an investigation, that someone will be held accountable, but is that true? I mean, think about how emboldened IDF soldiers feel, because they're the ones who are posting these videos of themselves. It's not like anyone hacked into their email or their phones and found this footage. No. They themselves are posting it on social media, right? Okay, well, that's because they know that it's unlikely that they're going to face punishment, and the numbers certainly bear that out. So between 2016 and 2024, according to figures from the Military Advocate General, which oversees the process of investigating wrongdoing, a total of 2,427 complaints were filed by Palestinian residents of the West Bank against IDF soldiers. Those complaints resulted in just 552 investigations being launched, representing 21.6% of cases. Indictments were served in just 23 cases, 0.9% of the total number of complaints over 9 years. They can't even hit a 1%. They can't even hit a 1%. Okay, of the 696 complaints filed to MAG in which a Palestinian was killed as a result of IDF action, 195 investigations were opened, but just 2 of those investigations resulted in indictments, just 1% of such cases. So you can take your internal review process and shove it. Now, the only reason why they'll say that they're launching an investigation is because they know that this is really bad PR. Let's take a look at the last video here.
This does not look good at all for the Israelis, and it's going to be circulating online in the US as well. We know who will take advantage of this. IRGC accounts already talk about this, posted everywhere. Definitely Hezbollah affiliated accounts. And this is, again, another incident that is going to make a lot of bad portraying of the IDF, especially in terms of when it comes to the Christians that Israel wants to be, beside them after all. Judeo-Christian values, all of that, definitely the Israeli relationship with the US and with the Christians in the US. So this is again part of the issue here.
I love going to Israeli press because they're so much more honest.
Totally.
So that brother is just saying there, yeah, I mean, we need to sucker Christians in America to fund Israel. And who cares that they're smashing Jesus to pieces? We don't even believe in that guy at all.
To be fair, he didn't say that, but he did say this is bad PR.
No, yeah. I'm implying, you guys saw the video, you know what I'm saying. I'm implying that he thinks he does it. What he didn't say, let's be super clear, is, oh my God, this is desecration and really wrong and immoral. He said it's bad PR for Israel.
Exactly.
Okay, so Christians, whatever, right? But remember, those are the suckers we're robbing in America. We've already robbed them of $320 billion we put in our pockets. We've robbed them of $8 trillion to fight all of our enemies. And we call it a global war on terror. It's only our neighbors they attacked with their money and their military, right? So hey, cool it on hating the Christians or letting them realize we hate the Christians, right? So I want to mention one other spectacular case because I forgot about it, but one of you figured it out. Mike or Dave wrote in, thank you, brother. He wrote in, Shireen Abu Akleh wasn't just a Palestinian-American journalist. People forget she was a Christian Palestinian-American journalist. And it was Biden who didn't give a crap and genuflecting to Israel crosses party lines. Every part of that is correct. And so Biden never held the Israelis accountable. And Trump has never held them accountable. On top of all this, guys, this is not about Christians or Muslims, but 10 Americans have been killed in the last 3 years in the West Bank. And we have asked for zero accountability. We have not demanded that anyone be arrested, including for the murder of Shireen Abu Akleh, who's an American and Christian. Why did Biden or Trump not ask for the murderer to come to justice? We know and have admitted that it was an assassination.
And Biden isn't even named in any of the Epstein files we have access to. He just did it for the love of the game.
Yeah, and he did it for the love of the money because the AIPAC was his #1 donor throughout his career. True. That's why every once in a while, for no reason, Biden would come out and go, I'm a Zionist. I love Zionism. It wasn't just Israel and we special ally. No, of all politicians in my lifetime, he was the most adamant about how much he loved being a Zionist. He would get a check after every time he said it, right? But hey, our media never told you that either, right? Did you remember seeing on cable news how they're the #1 donor to Joe Biden, Donald Trump, Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, Mike Johnson, #1 donor to all of these leaders, but our media says, shh, don't tell anyone. Otherwise, how are we gonna rob the sucker Christian Americans and be able to kill them and desecrate and destroy their churches and totally get away with it and have them send us more money? So that's exactly what's happening there.
Well, when we come back from the break, there are other Democrats that we're going to weigh in on, especially as it pertains to policy and support toward Israel. You don't want to miss it. There is booing involved. We'll be right back.
Okay, let's go to YouTube members. RC7801 says, my brain hurts at how extremely corrupt and blatantly stupid this second go of Trump has been. And you and everybody else's brain, brother, totally. Mary Ellen Van Buren with an awesome name said, I totally hate when Trump administration used the phrase, we've been at war with Iran for 47 years. And Mary Ellen, do you know why they do that? Because we have no reason to be in Iran. So Israel came up with a talking point. Iran did something bad to you 47 years ago, right? So that's why Trump and all the Republicans are like, 47 years, because we have no business in Iran. They had to invent this 47-year BS to drag us in there. Kane's World says, so crickets for the dead innocents, but a statement for a busted statue sounds about right. Yep, that's usually the reaction. And like people say, get on me for saying Israel totally controls our government when it comes to foreign policy. But they're murdering Americans. We're not even asking them to arrest the murderers. It doesn't get any more control than that. Right. And you'd have to be a liar to say otherwise. Mike or Dave also wrote in, Dear America, I know we've had some good times. Remember Korea and that beach in Normandy, but it's time we went our separate ways. It's not me, it's you, totally you, Canada. Signed Canada, PS, stop calling. Okay, I like your participation in old school too, brother. Thomas Daniel says, these days my desire to stay informed is in direct conflict with my desire to stay sane. Well, Thomas, we try to keep you sane here as we tell you the news. I appreciate that you're with us. Elliot ZP said, it will be an absolute mistake for the Arachi Galfob to fly to negotiations this time. They will be targeted on their way back if a deal is not reached.
I don't think they should go.
Yeah, they're gonna go, but I'm worried about it. Israel could murder them, yes. We'll be back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Also, thank you, Box, for gifting a membership on YouTube, and Lady AF for gifting 5. You guys are amazing, we appreciate it. And ring the bell if you can. It doesn't cost you anything and it helps the show, we appreciate it. Casper.
All right, well, let's focus a little bit on the Democratic Party because things are changing for the better.
You said the Israeli government is evil. Do you think they're just as evil as Hamas?
Yes, killing tens of thousands of people makes you pretty damn evil. It's not how evil is this one versus that one. Hamas, evil. Israeli government, evil. We could say both.
Is Netanyahu, in your view, he's a war criminal?
Absolutely. Do you not think he is? When you conduct a genocide, you're a war criminal.
What do you make of the fact that Haley Stevens is backed by AIPAC?
I find that disastrous for our politics.
It's becoming increasingly clear that Democratic voters have had it with Israel, and they're specifically looking for Democratic candidates who are willing to sever ties and financial aid to Israel. Now, while some Democratic candidates are giving constituents what they want, though, there are others who want to continue supporting Israel while telling us lies about how it's our greatest ally. We're gonna get to all of that and more after Cenk gives us his 2 cents.
Yeah, I think this Michigan race is so telling. That's why I want you guys to make sure you listen to the way that the race has gone throughout this campaign. Because what used to be a liability, and that's why you hear Manu Raju saying it like, are you saying Netanyahu is problematic? Are you saying Israel could be the same as Hamas? So that used to kill candidates. Now it's helped Abdul El Sayed, who you just saw there, go to #1 in that race. So it's a whole new world in American politics now. Wait till you hear all the facts.
Well, not #1 quite yet, but he is rising in this particular race. So this is the Michigan Senate race. There is an open seat, and the Democratic primary super spicy. So here are the three Democratic candidates seeking the party's nomination for the Senate seat. You have State Senator Mallory McMorrow. You have Congresswoman Haley Stevens, an avid Israel supporter who has literally taken millions of dollars from the Israel lobby. We'll get to that in just a minute. And then the gentleman you heard from, Abdul Al-Sayed, who's been gaining some traction in the polls lately after heavily condemning Israel and campaigning with your nephew, Hassan Piker.
Yeah, just real quick on that, guys. You see him there go up from 23 to 39 since March 17th in that particular poll. That's exactly the time period when the mainstream media started attacking him. Oh, you're campaigning with Hassan Piker. Oh, you're against Israel. Boo. And all it did was skyrocket him in the polls. So, oops. And that is the poll that has him in the weakest position. The reason I said he's in the lead is because I've seen him in the lead in one poll, and in the other polls he's nearly tied. So the numbers are even better since the poll that CNN showed. Go ahead, Anna.
So turns out that no one's really a fan of Stevens because she's extremely pro-Israel. Let's take a look at how much money she's taken from the Israel lobby. From Track AIPAC reports that she's taken over $9 million, quite a bit of money. And the crowd did express some displeasure toward her during the Michigan Democratic Party convention on Sunday. Take a look at this.
Beautiful.
Oh God, that really almost made me cry out of happiness. Okay, so the reaction to Stevens, I want to be clear, is a major 180 from how voters felt about her when she defeated former Representative Andy Levin back in 2022. So AIPAC funded her campaign heavily, and by the way, he's not anti-Israel at all. It's just that he called for a two-state solution, and that offended the sensitivities of the Israel lobby because God forbid the Palestinian people get a chance at self-determination. Levin, who was backed by J Street, the liberal pro-Israel lobby, is vocally critical of Israel and authored a two-state solution act this session that would restrict how Israel could use US aid. Has been in AIPAC's crosshairs. AIPAC's former director, David Victor, a Detroit resident, called him arguably the most corrosive member of Congress to the US-Israel relationship. So Stevens beat him as a result of that.
Yeah, so I want to explain that a little bit more. Let's put up her picture in the AIPAC tracker. So she's taken over $9 million from AIPAC. That is a stunning number. That's more than Schumer. It's almost in Biden territory, more than Kamala Harris. So, by the way, she even looks like the Undertaker, the bride of the Undertaker, and she acts like it. So AIPAC came in. Andy Levin is Jewish American, comes from a storied Jewish family in Michigan. He's had relatives in the Senate as well. Loves the state of Israel, has nothing, he says he's a Zionist, right? But he was in favor of a two-state solution because he's also wants the Palestinians to be free.
How dare he?
And which, by the way, is the official government position. And he did not agree to completely unconditional aid to Israel. Why? Because he's an American, okay? And AIPAC said, how dare you? How dare you say that the aid, the money that we're giving to Israel shouldn't be unconditional, no matter what Israel does, because AIPAC probably knew they were going to commit several more genocides because they know that they were going to try to take more of Gaza and Lebanon, etc. So no, the aid has to be unconditional. And think about how absurd that is overall, guys. For our entire lives up until this moment, every politician had to promise that we would give billions of your money to them, and then it would be totally unconditional. They could do any crime, any disgusting thing, including against us, but their aid will always flow to them. So since Andy Levin said no to that, they gave millions and millions to the Undertaker's bride, and she helped defeat him. But that is another really interesting thing there. So there's two lessons out of that. Number one, this has nothing to do with Jews. They hide behind Jewish people and use them as human shields. But they took out a Jewish American and put in Haley Stevens, who is not Jewish. It's about your obedience and your subservience to the government of Israel. That's what it's about. And number two is when they were politically assassinating Andy Levin, mainstream media was 100% on the side of Haley Stevens and AIPAC. So they never made a big deal out of it. They weren't like, wait, this is an incumbent. You know, normally they love incumbents. They were never like, this is scandalous to attack a Democratic incumbent for no reason at all and spend like $4 million to defeat him. They were like, no, that's normal, that's normal. He's not supporting AIPAC enough, get rid of him. Anti-Semite, wait, what? That doesn't make any sense. So now the power of mainstream media is greatly reduced. So now we all know, and hence she's getting booed by almost all the Democrats in Michigan, and now she has no chance of winning, so it's a beautiful day in America.
Now, some might argue, well, you know, Michigan does have a sizable Muslim population. Maybe this isn't really a good symbol or sign of a broader movement among the Democratic base. But if you think that, you'd be mistaken, because it turns out Democratic voters have in fact turned their back on Israel for good reason. Let's go to E3 here.
You see Al-Sayed going up, and there's all this discussion. Oh, there's this divide on Israel within the Democratic Party. I'd make the argument there was a divide 4 years ago. I'm not quite sure there's a divide anymore, because just take a look here. Okay, Democrats' net favorability of Israel, not liberal, those who are moderate conservative versus those who are liberal. You go back to 2022, those who are not liberal, slightly more likely to hold a net favorable view of Israel than not. Liberals were against Israel by that point, minus 26 points. Come over to this side of the screen. That divide is simply put gone. There is no divide within the Democratic Party when it comes to views towards Israel. The net favorable rating amongst those who are moderate conservative, not liberal. Look at this, minus 55 points. That's a shift of 58 points in just 4 years' time. Those who are liberal, it's nearly a 50-point shift, minus 74 points. But now moderates and conservatives, as well as liberals, those within the Democratic electorate are united on their views towards Israel. It is unfavorable at this point.
Yummy in my tummy. And look, some people are in denial about this, Cenk. Some would argue that this isn't really about displeasure with Israel overall. It's really about one thing or one person only. And that's what you're about to hear from a former Biden advisor, Amos Hochstein. Let's go to E5.
Do you think Democrats are going to come to regret this break in the alliance?
So I hope that it's not a break in the alliance. I think what it really demonstrates is for the last several years, Prime Minister Netanyahu has sacrificed Israel's interest in the United States. The most important asset that Israel has is not its military or its intelligence. It's the special relationship with the United States that has been bipartisan for so many decades. He has destroyed that because he has decided to become not just part of the Republican Party, but he's decided to become just an appendage of Donald Trump. And so every Democrat now sees, if you want to be Trump, great. If we're anti-Trump, then by de facto, we are against you. I think this is a lot to do with Bibi Netanyahu and his extremist right-wing government, and not to do with Israel. Look, you have half of Israel is voting against Bibi.
Yeah.
So I think this Democrat should be aligning with Israel, not with Bibi.
A lot of cope there, a lot of cope. I know that Israelis and their supporters want to reach for anything other than the obvious answer here. It's because Israel keeps killing innocent people and stealing land. It's that simple, okay? Unlike the cultural, paradigm that currently exists in Israel, here in the United States, killing innocent people still frowned upon. Still frowned upon.
Okay, so let me address a trend in that Harry Enten mentioned about, which is now a tidal wave. So first off, on that, brother there, the latest Israeli tactic here in America is, no, Israel's not the problem at all. Israel's great and golden as always. It's just that Netanyahu is being too right wing. So we have with the next Israeli prime minister who agrees with Netanyahu on literally everything, because all of the candidates in Israel do. They believe in slaughtering the Palestinians and never giving them a state and keeping Gaza and keeping southern Lebanon. All of the candidates do, but their new propaganda tactic was, this is Netanyahu. And so now we can move, and you see it in the Democratic Party too. Josh Shapiro obviously going to run for president. He's been doing a tour. First thing he comes out and goes, Israel's a right to exist. That's a real issue. That is very poorly received because they're like, nobody's talking about Israel's right to exist. That's not the issue. Their genocides are the issue. So he then switches it up to, I've always been against the Netanyahu government. And you know what? Once Netanyahu leaves, everything's going to be fine. No. Okay, so that's Josh Shapiro because he loves Israel, trying to run cover for them. It's not going to work. But others have wisened up. Even Rahm Emanuel is talking about cutting funding to Israel.
Don't trust him.
Okay, of course not. He's never going to do that. He's literally an IDF soldier,
exactly,
right?
Yep.
But he's smart enough to go, oh, I can read polls. -76 is a bad number. 80% of Democratic voters now have a negative view of Israel. So Rahm's gonna try to trick you by saying, oh, even though I'm an IDF soldier, I will cut funding. But at least he gets that's where everybody's going. McMorrow, the person that's leading in that poll that we just showed you, yes, Abdul El-Sayed. So she, just a couple of years ago, not a long time ago, wrote a glowing policy paper about how great Israel is for a pro-Israel group. Then she's taking $100,000 from the Israeli lobby, but now she's got her hand in the cookie jar. She says, oh, she's like, no, I'm not taking AIPAC money, other Israeli lobby, but I'm not taking AIPAC money. And then she even tried to go and say, okay, it is a genocide. And then she got slapped on the wrist, and she came back and said, sorry, not a genocide, not a genocide. Oh yeah, McMorrow, you'll be a lot better. You'll be the moderate, because she's trying to position herself as like, I get it, you're not gonna vote for Haley Stevens. Oh yeah, she takes AIPAC money. But Abdul, like a little crazy Muslim radical, right? I'm the safe option, I don't take AIPAC money. My ass, you were kissing Israel's ass a minute ago. Okay, but again, shows you the trend. They're starting to panic and do new lines of propaganda.
So here's a warning, or I don't even want to say warning, but just something to look out for those who really deeply care about this issue. The behavior of McMorrow reminds me of the behavior of establishment Democrats, corporate Democrats, as the progressive wave was really building in response to Bernie Sanders running in 2026. Of course, he got shafted by the Democratic establishment, but that's neither here nor there. The point is, you're gonna get Democratic candidates who can read the tea leaves, they see what's happening with the base, and they're gonna lie to you about who they are and what they actually represent. They're gonna pretend like they're gonna fight against Israel, but in reality, just like Rahm Emanuel, they're probably gonna do Israel's bidding, as we've always done. And we need actual fighters. There's no reason to believe that Abdul El-Sayed is lying to us because he's strong in his statements. What he said to Manu Raju was not only bold, it was accurate, and he's unapologetic about it. That's what we need.
Yeah, there's this great ironic advantage for Muslim American candidates these days because everybody knows, well, at least they're not gonna sell out to Israel.
True.
So that's part of why Mamdani won. That's why Abdul El-Sayed is rising the polls. Last thing on a national scale, guys. So there's only one guy that I see that's genuine about this. It's Ro Khanna talking about not another dollar, no more money to Israel, no more their prime minister coming into our situation room. We should stand up for America. But the rest of the party is still full of BS, right? Why? We just had a vote on the War Powers Act. Oh, good lady, just got enough votes in the House to pass by one vote. Oh, golly gee, keep Israel's war going in Iran. And in the Senate, they sent 1,000-pound bombs to Israel and armed bulldozers to destroy innocent people's homes. And not only did every Republican vote for it, but 7 snakes in the Senate crossed party lines and said, oh, no. Chris Coons, Fetterman, Schumer, Blumenthal, etc. No, Gillibrand, we loyally serve Israel. Give them all the destruction, weapons of mass destruction and whatever else you have to do. Make sure they murder more of their neighbors. So when it comes to the actual votes on what matters, the Democratic Party in reality hasn't moved an inch. Their leadership still completely represents Israel and not us.
When we come back from the break, we'll talk a little bit about an explosive report in The Atlantic about Kash Patel's alleged alcoholism and incompetence and how he's responding to it. We'll be right back.
Wow. right, let's go to Super Chats. Jeremy23 says, thank you, TYT. Love Cenk and Anna. So happy many of my family members have finally woken up about Trump. They can see this war was all about Israel wanting control over the Middle East. Love to hear that, brother. I love to hear people waking up. Adele Maurice Pollard, thank you for the Super Chat. Miyaga Ketsuki writes in, when September 11th occurred, Iran reached out to us to offer aid and to condemn the attack. In 2002, Bush said Iran was part of the axis of evil. Yeah, we've been screwing Iran, not for the last 47 years, but for much longer than that, okay? And yes, Iran hates Al-Qaeda because Al-Qaeda is Sunni terrorists who are also trying to topple the Iranian regime, okay? Eagles LIX says, funny thing is he glazes Israel with comments that are what his shallowness would think was going to help his stance with Bibi, and Bibi doesn't respond to that kind of glazing. He's referring to Trump, and Trump is like, I'm not controlled by Bibi, and then he glazes the hell out of him, like, oh, he's the greatest, which is counterproductive, obviously, to his goal. Bright Lights in a Dark Room says, I'm a member of a church with mixed political perspectives, and let me tell you, the more conservative members of our congregation are pretty furious about Trump and Israel lately. That is beautiful news to hear. Thank you for reporting that, brother. Arcane Eclectic says, what about 1953 when the US overthrew the government of Iran and put the Shah in power? That's exactly what I was referring to, brother. And he's a YouTube member. Drenched Wildfire on Twitch says, Corn Pop was Epstein. That's funny, okay.
Corn Pop was a bad dude.
He was indeed, we'll be back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, Jeremy23, and Hal Nike. Thanks for joining, guys. We appreciate it. They hit that beautiful join button below the video on YouTube. If you're watching elsewhere, like on Roku, Amazon Prime, YouTube TV, Samsung, LG, so many other 24-hour channels that we have that you should check out. All of you guys, tyt.com/join. Make sure that you're getting all of our content, which you can through our website. And if you listen through the member stream, during the ads, I read your comments. So tyt.com/join. Anna, what's next?
We got to talk about Kash Patel.
There is this scathing article about you in the Atlantic magazine. The Atlantic magazine director is alleging that you have a drinking problem, that it is getting in the way of your work running the FBI. What is your response this morning to this article?
FBI Director Kash Patel's response to that article is a lawsuit for $250,000 against the Atlantic, allegedly for defamation. He's decided to sue them because he is probably embarrassed by the explosive report that does in fact paint him as someone with alcohol issues, and clearly he's incompetent. Like, we didn't need the Atlantic to tell us about that. But before I give you the details, Cenk, your 2 cents.
Yeah, so there's 2 interesting parts of this story, which is, can government officials not just sue the press willy-nilly every time they're criticized? Because if that holds, then you won't have any real press in this country, not that you have much to begin with. So we'll come back to that issue. And I didn't know about if he had a drinking problem. That's news to me, so we're gonna find out about all that in a little bit. But I'm also curious as to why this is coming out now. So I always ask that question, maybe just because he's out of control, but we'll talk about that too. All right.
So the Atlantic piece was written by Sarah Fitzpatrick, and it's definitely a bad look for Patel. I highly recommend you read the piece. It's enlightening, let's just put it that way. It's titled, "The FBI Director is MIA. Kash Patel has alarmed colleagues with episodes of excessive drinking and unexplained absences." Now look, to be fair, the story relies on multiple anonymous sources within the administration. Usually when sources within an administration start leaking things like this to the press, it's because they've got a different agenda in mind. So just keep that in mind as we give you the details. However, when you consider Patel's public behavior, this doesn't seem far-fetched to me, at least. So it begins with a pretty embarrassing moment that took place on April 10th when Patel apparently had some trouble logging into the internal computer system at the FBI. He thought that he had been locked out of the system because he had been fired. He quickly became convinced that he had been locked out, and he panicked, frantically calling aides and allies to announce that he had been fired by the White House, according to 9 people familiar with his outreach. 2 of these people described his behavior as a freak out. But he actually hadn't been fired at all. But since he was going around telling people that he thinks he had been fired, there were members of Congress hitting up the White House to ask, like, okay, well, who's in charge of the FBI since Patel is out? Now, he's apparently deeply concerned that his job is on the line, partly due to his alleged excessive drinking. At least that's what's reported in this piece. Several officials said that he is known to drink to the point of obvious intoxication, in many cases at the private club Ned's in Washington, D.C. God, this sounds like such a bad time. While in the presence of White House and other administration staff, he is also known to drink to excess at the Poodle Room in Las Vegas, where he frequently spends parts of his weekends.
Is that named by the Israelis for all the politicians who serve them?
That's hilarious.
Hey,
but
go
by
to
the
the
way,
Poodle Room.
Speaking of the Israelis, if you've got substance abuse issues or alcohol issues, you're easy to blackmail. So maybe we shouldn't have someone who has those issues as the FBI director, assuming these allegations are true.
2 quick points about that, then I'll let you get back. So first, just a quick correction. We said $250,000,000 he's suing for. Suing for $250 million, $250 million. Okay, come on. I mean, the absurdity, right?
That's insane.
Yes, of course it's insane,
so
right?
The Atlantic, by the way, is like, no, we're fighting back. And they should, because there have been other instances of Trump suing the media and they cave immediately, and that sets a terrible precedent. Now they did it for other agendas. But anyway, let me get back to this. So this has apparently had a huge impact on his job performance. The fact that he frequents the Poodle Room in Vegas frequently and all that stuff. Early in his tenure, meetings and briefings had to be rescheduled for later in the day as a result of his alcohol-fueled nights. 6 current and former officials and others familiar with Patel's schedule told me. I can't think of anything I want to do less than get drunk among politicians in Washington, D.C. Like, that sounds both a bad idea, a bad time, and knowing our politicians, dangerous.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So look, I'm curious what's gonna happen to Kash Patel once Donald Trump dumps him for real, right? And there are some rumblings about that in the real world. And because then I can't imagine that his girlfriend's gonna be that far behind, because then he won't be of any use anymore. And so he's gonna be such a lost little puppy.
No, his girlfriend loves him for who he is, Shank.
Oh, well, yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah, totally.
So I don't know anything about the relationship.
So look, apparently Trump has taken some notice of his behavior and the fact that he seems to take a lot of time away from his official duties. So apparently, multiple people told The Atlantic that there was once a request for something known as breaching equipment, which is normally used by SWAT and hostage rescue teams to quickly enter buildings because Patel was unreachable behind locked doors. So we don't know what happened there, but apparently Trump took notice of that. And while on official travel to Italy in February, he was filmed chugging beer with the US men's Olympic hockey team following their gold medal victory. The incident prompted the president, who does not drink and whose brother died following a long struggle with alcoholism, to call the FBI director to convey his unhappiness. Patel is described as erratic, suspicious of others, and prone to jumping to conclusions before he has the necessary evidence. I think we have all seen that. We've witnessed that, especially when it came to the Brown University shooting, when it came to the investigation into Charlie Kirk's assassination, and he preemptively announced that there was a suspect in custody. I mean, he was giving us false information, didn't really seem like he knew what he was doing. FBI officials who spoke to The Atlantic also said that they're all just waiting for the word on his firing. Seems like he's not really well liked within the administration. One former FBI official told reporter Jonathan Lemire that Patel was rightly paranoid that he's gonna get fired soon, and senior Trump officials are already thinking about who they want to replace him with. So it does seem like his days are numbered. Another insane decision by Patel, by the way, was to fire members of a counterintelligence squad that was devoted to Iran. right before the war with Iran? Like, what? He recently expressed frustration with the look of FBI merchandise, complaining that it isn't intimidating enough. Part of me is glad he's wasting his time on BS because it's less dangerous for rule of law for the American public, one official told me, but it also means we don't have a real functioning FBI director. Well, we don't really have a real functioning government either. Cenk, back to you.
So yeah, if there were rumors of me having a drinking problem, here's what I wouldn't go and do. Go to the US hockey team and start chugging beers with them, like hey, easy, take it easy. So he just has no common sense at all. Why does he even have the job? His main qualification is ass kissing, right? Mainly of Trump. He did the kid's book about Trump and how Trump is a victim and everybody else out to get him and all that stuff. He's also very friendly with Israel, which makes me wonder those Iranian experts why they were fired. Maybe they were going to give accurate information about Israel, and
that's a really good point, Cenk.
Okay,
yeah.
And that might be what's protecting him despite his clownish behavior and his obvious lack of qualifications. So I don't know those dynamics well enough to be able to comment on it. It is interesting, whenever there's a leak of this size coming from inside the government, I always question what the agenda of the leakers are. In this case though, it seems like, you never know, but it seems like it's just exasperation. Like other people at the FBI are like, for God's sake, are we gonna solve any cases? Are we gonna act like grown-ups here? Or are we gonna have to try to bust into this guy's door every time he passes out and we can't reach him?
So let's get to the last story since we have a little bit of time left. Let's talk about the pedo elites.
Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison, and so a lot of people want to know if she's going to turn in powerful people. And I know you've talked in the past about Prince Andrew, and you've criticized Bill Clinton's behavior. I'm wondering, do you feel that she's going to turn in powerful men? How do you see that working out?
I don't know. I haven't really been following it too much. I just wish her well, frankly. I've met her numerous times over the years, especially since I lived in Palm Beach, and I guess they lived in Palm Beach. But I wish her well. Whatever it is, I don't know the situation with Prince Andrew. Just don't know, not aware of it.
That was President Donald Trump, the president of the United States in 2020, wishing Ghislaine Maxwell, a serial pedophile groomer and rapist, well. And now it turns out, Cenk, that her lawyer believes that she's got a pretty good chance at a pardon.
Yeah, one of the reasons she does is because of the quotes we're gonna give you from Trump himself. That's just the tip of the iceberg, what you saw there. I think there's an excellent chance he's gonna pardon her. You'll see why.
So recently her attorney, David Oscar Marcus, had an interview with Politico, and he tried to, clear her name, downplay her wrongdoing, saying, I think she's a scapegoat. She would never have been prosecuted had Jeffrey Epstein not committed suicide or whatever, however he died. She was the one who recruited underage girls to be raped, and she also participated in some of the rape. What are you talking about? But okay, he's the lawyer, so I guess the lawyer is supposed to do what lawyers do. They lie on behalf of their clients. And that there's a good chance, and for good reason, that she would get a pardon. Now, why? Why would she get a pardon? Good reason is an interesting choice of words there. So as an acolyte of Epstein's colleague, Alan Dershowitz, Marcus maintains that the DOJ cast too wide a net when it came to prosecution. Listen, what Jeff Epstein did was terrible, and he should go to jail and the rest of it, no question about it, he said. This is Maxwell's attorney, previous statement, okay? The net has been cast way too wide, and there's a lot of innocent people being like Alan being caught up in it. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if Alan Dershowitz is actually innocent. He hasn't been convicted of anything, but the Epstein files that we have access to seem pretty damning for Dershowitz. Now, Trump said that he has not thought about it or ruled it out, meaning like giving her a pardon. The fact that he's been so vague about it makes you think he's considering it. And while Marcus is optimistic about a pardon, he says that right now might not be the best time to pursue it aggressively since people are still kind of focused on the Epstein files. Let that focus die down a little bit and then Maxwell will have a better chance at a pardon. Maxwell obviously wants clemency. There's no secret about that. I don't think now is the best time to do it with everything going on. we're not on a full court press right now. Cenk.
Yeah, so the net was way too wide. We literally prosecuted no one.
Yeah.
Other than Epstein was gonna get prosecuted, but then somebody murdered him in jail, so he didn't even get prosecuted. Ghislaine Maxwell is literally the only person who's been arrested otherwise and convicted. And now you're saying we shouldn't even do Ghislaine Maxwell. So how could it be any narrower? It literally is impossible for it to be narrower than that. So, but yet it's never enough for the Epstein class. No, you have to let every guilty person go. And the real problem is the victims. Okay, so now, why did I say that I think Trump's gonna pardon her? So let me give you some of the quotes he said about her. You saw the one on the video, now here's others. When asked about whether he was gonna pardon her, he said, I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought about. Right. Wait, if you didn't think about it, why are you telling us that you can do it?
Right.
I mean, as I said earlier in the show, if they asked him about a Venezuelan gang member, he wouldn't say, I can do it. You said, why? No, of course I'm not gonna give a pardon to that person. But here he's obviously thinking about it. More quotes. When asked again about the pardon, he said in October that he'd have to, quote, take a look at her case. What do you have to take a look at? Like, she's one of the worst child molesters and groomers in American history. What do you have to look at? So he's obviously considering, there's no question. Last one, he says that after that was rejected by the Supreme Court, he said, well, I wouldn't regarding the pardon, I wouldn't consider it or not consider it.
Weird.
He's so definitely gonna pardon her. And if he's gonna pardon her, you know why? Because they have blackmail on him. It's not complicated. All right, guys, I've got Member Mondays coming up right now, so stay right here. Members get to call in, tyt.com/call to be able to call in. Everybody else, let's watch and let's do a revolution together, a political one. We'll see you there in a minute. All right, everybody, welcome to The Revolution. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur. We're doing Member Mondays today. So what that means is members get to call in and talk to me about anything you like. But first of all, we want to talk about the revolution mainly here, meaning like, how are we all going to work together to get the political revolution that we're looking for? And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about how to call in because it's the first time we're doing it. And then I'm going to tell you about the things that we're trying to fix here. And I've already got some comments that folks have written it in instead of calling, but also you can do the call. So again, in order to do it, you got to be a member, but you go to tyt.com/call if you are, and they explain how to do it. So there's step-by-step instructions there, and it involves being on Discord, but apparently that's relatively straightforward to set up. And in Discord, you click on the channel called Member Mondays Live. Member Mondays Live. If you want to be on the show, you click the hand icon and chat with Kara in the chat window, and then Kara will give you permission to speak, and that's how we're going to do the mechanics of this. And if you don't see the chat window, click on the little cartoon conversation bubble by the channel name. So that's very specific instructions. Hopefully you'll get that, and if you get on the show, remember to mute the broadcast so we don't hear you coming over the speakers as well. And then when you're done, Carl will send you back to the audience, or you can just click the phone icon to hang up, okay? So that's the mechanics of it, but you can see all that at tyt.com/call. Now, what I wanna do before we take our first caller is talk about the state of play right now. Look, guys, on the one hand, things are super depressing. We're in the middle of a war that it doesn't help us at all. We've got Israel basically robbing us blind, and mainstream media and the politicians haven't moved that much. Although today on the Young Turks, we talked about how the Democratic Party is, the voters have moved so much that it's forcing the politicians to respond, and even the media very, very reluctantly. So that's a ray of hope there, but that ray of hope leads to the light at the end of the tunnel. So today, ironically, I'm also super encouraged because you see Abdullah al-Said move up 15 to 20 points once he started more aggressively taking on Israel and this war. And you see a lot of politicians in a panic over getting money from AIPAC and the Israeli lobby. The reason why that's so exciting is because in 2028, we're going to have the most important primary in the history of my lifetime, at least in this country. And when we do, I don't want Democratic voters getting tricked again. By the way, same thing is true of the Republican side. If you get tricked into voting for Marco Rubio on the Republican side, or Cory Booker, or someone along those lines, Josh Shapiro on the Democratic side, all you're gonna get is more and more pro-Israel and more pro-corporate candidates, right? So it's not just about Israel. They'll do anything for donor money, no matter where it comes from. So I'm now encouraged, really on both sides, but it's overwhelming on the Democratic side, that we're more likely to pick someone who is free of corporate PAC money, cares about money in politics, and that's the most important part, and is also free of Israeli money and influence and control. And that would be a dream come true, and it would make it far more likely for the Democrats to win the presidency. And right there, guys, I mean, you have a perfect situation there. And again, why there's a decent amount of hope, if you ask me, in that, and one we've never had before, where I think if Republicans or the Democrats nominate someone who is free of Israel's influence, if it's only one of them, whichever party does it will have a massive, monumental advantage. A party would have to be mental at this point to nominate someone who's pro-Israel and wants to continue to give them unconditional support and funding, let alone doing all their wars for them. That party would definitely lose. You could take that to the bank. So, if the Republicans want to make that mistake, that's on them. If the Democrats make that mistake, I'm now voting for a Democrat that's going to say, I don't care about American sovereignty, I hate your freedoms, and I will loyally serve Israel. And especially if they keep out any honest candidates from the primary, then they're going to force a third party situation, because this thing's going to blow. You can't have 80% of your voters on one side of an issue and your presidential candidate on the opposite side. It's untenable. It will not work. So as much as the problems are massive, the solution has also begun, in my opinion. Okay, so since this is our first day doing it, I'm a little unclear, as you probably guys are in some of the stuff here. So I don't know if there's a caller on yet. And so as soon as that's made clear to me through the producers, etc., I'll take the first call. But, and I know it's gonna take a minute for you guys to get through that process, but go to tyt.com/call if you're a member. And if you're not a member, hit the join button below on YouTube or tyt.com/join. So I'm gonna read a couple of comments from the show that are related to this and also interacting with you guys. Oh, I think we've got our first caller. Well, I'll read one comment since I promised it. Chrissy-Ann64 says, I'm really thankful for you guys. Cenk is so level-headed. Okay, thank you for that compliment. And Anna is very thoughtful and reflective. You're one of the reasons my eyes have been opened. The reality is we shouldn't be fighting each other because we're so much better when we respect each other. So I love that. So in fact, Wolfpack has a new website, fightcorruption.us, and their new slogan is fight corruption, not each other. So check out fightcorruption.us. And again, we don't care at all if you're left wing, right wing, or middle wing. Others care deeply about that, not us, especially not on this show. So please go help in any way you can to get money out of politics and free us of the corruption that we're living under. No matter where you are in the political spectrum, fightcorruption.us. Okay, I believe we've got Eclectic Miscellanea as our first member caller ever on Member Mondays, which is fitting. Eclectic's part of Operation Hope. Let's give it a shot. Eclectic, you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. I'm really excited to be the first caller.
That's awesome. All right.
And I have a really silly question, but I was the first one to submit one, I guess. But what is the stupidest question you've ever been asked besides this one?
Okay, that's fun. And I will allow all fun questions, okay? Especially when we go to the member only section in a little bit. Have at it, Hoss, ask anything you like. So look, whenever I get these questions, it is really hard. I don't think it's a stupid question, I think it's kind of a fun question. This is not the stupidest question at all. It's a perfectly good question, but the one I struggle the most with is, what was your favorite interview? I'm like, oh Jesus, I don't know. I've done thousands of interviews. Like it's tough to like on the spot get my favorite interview ever. So I struggle with that one. In terms of stupid questions, they're almost always ones that are framed with an obvious bias. You know, things like, how are you gonna pay for Medicare for all? When that brother never cared about paying for wars, paying for anything else. It's almost always, oh, I got it. In the midst of it, I remembered, okay? It's because I was gonna say, it's always, the dumbest questions are always the ones where they're trying to frame you in some way and give you something that's an impossible question. The classic one that people use as an example is, when did you stop beating your wife? Because there is no good answer to that question. The problem is all in the framing. So whenever people are trying to smear me, like I'm running for office, I set up Justice Democrats, they always come in with dumbass things like that. So, and in the midst of remembering that, I remembered the dumbest question I ever got. An LA Times reporter asked me, is it true that you're attracted to women? I'm like, wait, is that a crime? It's like, yes, the rumors of me being straight are true. Okay, congratulations, you got me? Like, do I have an obligation not to be straight? Okay, so, God, that was a dumb question. So Eclectic, there you go, that's your answer.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling in, all right, and thanks for being the first caller ever. I knew it was gonna take a minute for people to run through that cycle a little bit here. All right, let's go to the next caller. Give me your name and where you're from.
Hey, Cenk, my name's Aaron, I'm from North Carolina.
All right, cool, what's up, Aaron?
Yeah, real quick, I'm just really happy I get to finally say hey to you. But yeah, I've been watching you guys for like 10 years. I remember as far back as like the Jacory and Arthur breaks and everything like that. Good times. So real quick, one little thing I wanted to run by you is I have now this may sound really stupid and simplistic. I don't know. I don't know how it sounds, but I had an idea for a slogan that maybe you could use for this whole campaign thing, the whole initiative. Let's agree to agree where we agree. Like, I feel like that it sounds stupid, and it is stupid, but I feel like maybe that's dumb enough to maybe get the point across. Like, if some like awful person is on the same page with you on something that you care about, like if some like, racist, sexist, homophobe, murderer, pedophile wants universal health care and you want universal health care, that's a good thing. You don't have to be friends with the guy. You don't have to hang out. You don't have to respect them. But if we're all kind of coalescing around something that's positive, who cares really about like, the character or whatever, the other person? Just like, can we just focus on the bigger picture?
Yeah. All right, Aaron, I appreciate the call. And I don't think it's such a bad slogan. You're right. I mean, it's like so obvious that it makes people go, yeah, why would we agree to disagree where we agree? Obviously, we should agree where we agree, right? So,
yeah, but
that's kind of what I've been saying all along. But a lot of folks think that is complicated and that we shouldn't do that. Now, I don't know that I'd go as far as your example of like finding murderers and pedophiles.
You know what I mean?
I do.
I'm just being dumb.
Yeah,
but
yeah. I mean, look. So, in fact, the best example that just happened a couple of days ago. When Anna was on Megyn Kelly's show. So we still get frustrated with Megyn Kelly from time to time, of course, because there's so much we disagree on. The other day when she was talking about immigration, we were quite animated against what she was saying. That's perfectly normal. But when Anna went on and they were talking about war in Israel, Megyn Kelly said something that Tucker often says, but she said it even more so. She said, look, I was wrong about all these issues and you guys were right. And so now I've woken up to what's happening around Israel, and I was too positive about them. And you guys were always against war, and you were always pointing these things out. And that little piece at the end there was kind of amazing and spectacular. I mean, I say, look, they don't need to apologize. They don't need to do anything other than just agree with us on a super important issue like ending the war or ending a genocide. And so, but she went further than that and even apologized for being wrong. You really can't ask for better than that. So I think that these new allies on these issues is super important, and it helps to drive momentum overall to end the funding of Israel, which we certainly want. And last thought there.
Oh, I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. I mean, I was thinking specifically about the show the other day where Anna was. I think she was talking about Megyn Kelly, where she always gives the disclaimer like, "Look, I disagree with her on things about reproductive rights. Anna's pro-life, and Megyn Kelly is not, and so on." But emphasizing, look, we agree on this very important issue, which is the issue of the day, which is the whole Iran war, Israel conflict, blah blah blah. So yeah, I mean. I feel like we're at least trending in a better direction in this. I mean, how much worse can everything possibly get in terms of us all being at each other's throats across the aisle?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for calling in, Aaron. I totally appreciate it. It's a great call. So yeah, Anna's pro-choice. He accidentally said pro-life. I think Megyn Kelly is pro-life, anti-choice, whatever you want to call her. Those are some old school disagreements, and they're important. They're really important. And I hope if a Democratic candidate wins that we go back to the country being pro-choice and that we actually do something about it, because 70% of the country is pro-choice. So those are normal, good, and important left-right distinctions and disagreements, but stopping a genocide and stopping a war are also massively important. And that's what's happening right now. Those are the most important pressing issues. So I take yes for an answer on that, and I'm glad to see that you think similarly as well. There's a lot of folks watching this too. So I was gonna go to someone there, but they jumped off for a second. I'm gonna read two more comments here from YouTube members. Goldie 2040 said, just joining from Taiwan, nice to see the dynamic duo in studio. He was referring to the Young Turks. I love that we have an international audience, and I love that they care about our news, because honestly, our news affects the whole world. As we were telling you on the Young Turks, South Korea, India, and Europe are getting hurt by this war even more than we are. the ramifications of our actions and us being forced to take actions on behalf of Israel have worldwide repercussions. So a lot of folks from different parts of the world watch, and I appreciate that. And by the way, shout out to our crew here, including Edwin and so many others, for this nice little setup for Member Mondays. So appreciate that, yes. One more quick one, just a fun one. Dragon Lion 69 says, the liquor cabinet so far is Cash on the Rocks and Whiskey Pete. Always comes sour. Okay, always appreciate a good joke. All right, well, I think we got the next caller. All right, caller, tell me your name and where you're from.
Well, you got AJ Nestor here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. All right.
Oh, wow, the thing actually works, amazing. Yeah, let's see, I live right near Philadelphia, PA. And I left you a note in the chat there. I'm thinking about, do we have sort of a short list of the people we're looking at to run as progressives in the next presidential campaign? Like people who might actually do it.
I have a very, very short list, but it's a good question. So, okay, you know the first person I'm gonna say, right? The one guy taking all the action. You know,
probably Ro Khanna.
Yeah, of course, Ro Khanna. So he jumps out from the crowd. Why? Because, I mean, who else got the Epstein files released? Who else is all over television saying, stop the wars, stop funding Israel? And look, leaders lead, and he's leading right now. So he stands head and shoulders above everyone else. By the way, I would love for everyone else to join him and make it an interesting contest. Like, oh, I don't know, he's saying this and AOC saying that, and Andy Bashir is saying something even more on our side. That would be amazing, and I look forward to it. I don't want it to be just Ro. I want as many people saying the right things as possible, but so far, it's kind of overwhelmingly Ro. But there are other good guys. There's Chris Van Hollen in the Senate, and he's actually been shockingly wonderful in the Senate, and so props to him, Senator out of Maryland, and he's been terrific on Gaza and on the wars. He's not in the press as much as Ro is, and he's not as active in my opinion, but behind the scenes he does amazing work, and he got a young American kid released from one of the Israeli prisons. That was a campaign we did on this program on the revolution. Mohammed Ibrahim, a 16-year-old American kid who was literally got sick and had lost 30 pounds, and we were super worried about his health inside one of these Israeli gulags. And God, the stories today, reported out of Israel, they were having dogs rape the detainees. It's just unbelievably sick. And Chris Van Hollen did heroic work to get him out. So that's another guy that's sometimes talking about in the presidential race. Look, AOC, I think, is better suited for the New York Senate run, and that would be so important to pick up Chuck Schumer's seat. And she's been pretty good on these issues. Has she been super active on all the things we care about? Not nearly as active as we would like. And I want that New York Senate seat. I think that would be the better way to go there. So besides those guys, slim pickings. Do you have any other thoughts or suggestions?
I wish I had.
Yeah, me too, brother. Me too.
But I mean, especially in light of AI coming to make all our lives more complicated, and no one seeming to want to do a thing about legislating about the safety of it, and everything I learned about it gets pretty terrifying pretty fast.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just hope we have some people with the right mindset to maybe wrap their brains around it. And we're not seeing that now.
So I have a thought on that too. So first, thanks for the call, great call, and a really good question. So you're gonna be shocked to find out who's the one Democrat who is most obsessed with coming up with an AI plan when the economic destruction begins. Ro Khanna. I mean, that's why, guys, he's like, I think he's not that well liked within the Democratic Party. That's my outsider's view. Because just like Bernie Sanders in the past, he's kind of embarrassing them. Because when you see him so active on the war, plus he's the guy with the AI plan, you're like, wait, does any other Democrat do anything? And so to be fair, I'm sure there's some others that are, trying to do something about AI. I haven't seen it, but just because I haven't seen it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But so I used to also talk about, last thing about your question, I also used to talk about Jon Stewart as a possibility, but I've kind of given up on that because leaders lead, and like in the beginning, it was nice that he didn't want it. You know, you wanted to kind of a little bit like Maximus Decimus Meridius from Gladiator. If you don't want it, you're kind of the right guy. But now it's gotten to the point where it looks like he really doesn't want it. And if you don't want to run, you're not going to win if you're half-hearted about it. And so it was a nice thought while it lasted. And I still love the brother. And you know, if he does something interested in politics, I'd be super interested in it and curious about it. But right now, there's one guy who's been representing us full tilt, and it's Ro Khanna. Again, I hope that doesn't stay the case. I hope many others join him and are great and have a possibility of doing better. By the way, this show, The Revolution, is totally nonpartisan. I emphasize that all the time because we're not going to get money out of politics, which is the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is not about Israel. Israel's the tip of the iceberg. But why it's so important is because it's showing you that there's an iceberg. And the iceberg is money in politics. How did Israel capture our government? Did they do something dastardly that no one else has thought of? No, they did something dastardly that everyone else has thought of. So you've heard me list all the lobbies before, but all the way down to like Big Sugar. You'd be shocked at how much influence they have. The corn industry, that's why we have high fructose corn syrup. That's why we're all overweight. Almost all of our politicians are bought, and Israel is just waking the country up to, oh, it's a foreign government that is controlling our government. That's obviously really, really bad. But guys, Big Pharma controlling our government is also really, really bad. That's why we can't negotiate drug prices. That's why their prices are through the roof. But so those are issues that don't just affect Democrats and independents. They affect Republicans, right wingers. They affect all of us. And in order to get money out of politics, we must have our right-wing brothers and sisters on our side. Otherwise, we'll never get 3/4 of the states to pass the amendment that we need. And so the good news is, for all of our disagreements, as we talked about earlier in the show on other issues, over 90% of Americans, almost all right-wingers, almost all left-wingers, and certainly almost all independents, want to get money out of politics and want to end the corruption. Those are the voters. Our problem is with the politicians. That's why we need a revolution, political revolution against the government. All right, let's go to our next caller here. Oh my God.
Cenk, this is Kara.
Yeah, who is this?
This is Kara. I work for you.
Oh, Kara Eastman. Yes, I'm familiar with her work. What's up, Kara?
I wanted to introduce you to Ryan from New Hampshire.
Oh, interesting. What's up, Ryan?
Hi, Cenk. Hi, Kara. Thank you for the introduction. I'm assuming you can hear me okay?
Yeah, I can, Ryan.
Hey, first, Cenk, thank you for running for president in this last cycle, and also for setting up this opportunity on Mondays for us to reach out and speak with you. I think it's super helpful.
Thank you, Ryan. I really appreciate that. And you're living in an incredibly relevant state. So I'm curious about your thoughts.
Yeah, I've actually lived all over the country, but I have moved back to New Hampshire, and I was raised in New Hampshire. I did want to bring up just a quick question for you. It might have already been passed along, but if it wasn't, I'm just going to say it now. You know, I prefer, the Andrew Yang Forward Party, but for now, I think the Democrats need a simple message that cuts through everything, that will stay in voters' minds, and particularly for low information voters. Make America Great Again really works in the rural areas where I live, because even the folks that don't really pay attention to politics, that sounds good to them. And it's my opinion that Democrats should take something from the Pledge of Allegiance right at the end, which is the Democratic Party stands for liberty and justice for all, and then tie all their policies back to those core principles. In my opinion, if most of them started, every interview, press conferences, et cetera, with this is what we stand for, that's gonna in the long run shape and change the direction of what people think of the party, in this country. And I wanted to hear what you thought about something like that.
Yeah, so it's a great question. First of all, do I like Andrew Yang? Well, oh, look at that. That's a Noble Mobile mug. That's his cell phone company. So yeah, Andrew's a great guy. Really appreciate him. And to be fair, the one person who was even ahead of Ro Khanna on AI is Andrew Yang. And that's part of the reason why he was talking about universal basic income, among other things, and he's been warning about it for a long time. So I appreciate Andrew's voice in politics, and as usual, we don't have to agree on everything for that to be the case and to work together, et cetera. Now, Ryan, oops, you had another question. You started with Andrew Yang, but I really want to talk about the main thing that you asked. Oh, right, I remember now. You were saying how should Democrats frame themselves like Republicans did with MAGA, and that worked for them. They won 2 critical elections. So my take on that, Ryan, is very similar to yours. I think our candidates need to emphasize how American our side is, okay? Now that's kind of a funny thing to say, but let me explain. Like, we're for America, we're not for anything else. We're not for foreign governments, but we're also not for corporations, and we're not for donors. So emphasize American voters, American ideals and principles, and that gets to exactly what you were saying. Liberty and justice for all. I couldn't agree more. As I said earlier in the Young Turks show, I'm obsessed with justice. I think that's a very core to the progressive movement, but really to the American idea. And so if we don't have justice for all, then we're not really equal under the law. And if we don't have liberty and sovereignty for this country, then obviously we're not free by definition. So by all means, I'm going to take that to every ally that I have. Let's focus on America, let's focus on liberty and justice for all, and let's focus on American voters. Enough with all the damn donors and all their priorities and all their wars. How about us? So absolutely, I think you're spot on. Okay.
Thank you, Jacob. I appreciate it. Have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. All right, guys, we're already out of time, which I'm kind of a little bit stunned by in a second. But hold on, we're gonna do a couple of things. Number one, members, we're still gonna take your calls in the bonus episode for the members. And that one, again, go as wide as you want, any questions. tyt.com/call is the process to get on, and we'll still keep taking those calls. And guys, we're gonna do this every Monday for at least 2 months and see how this goes and see if it's a good format. And what I wanna do, especially going forward, this is getting our feet on the ground here, getting our legs underneath us, whichever one's the right one, the second one. Anyways, but I want to start talking about with you guys, how can we effectuate this revolution, political revolution, right? What should we do specifically? What should we do in the short term and in the long term? So we've tried a couple of short-term things here, and we've had some success, not like overwhelming success, but we got Mohammed Ibrahim back. That wasn't mainly us, but it was partly us. And we've done some things online that have gotten a little bit of attention. I want to do a lot more of that. I think if we all work in unison at the same time, it'll have a much bigger impact. You know what, since this is our first one, we'll take one more call here while we're available to everyone. Cara, who's next?
We have Mohit from Austin, Texas.
All right, Mohit, you get the last call here. Mohit, can you hear us? Maybe unmute. We gave it a shot. I tried. Okay, everybody. Wonderful first episode of Member Mondays. I love everybody who called in. Great questions. Let's kick it over to the bonus episode. If you're not a member yet, that's why I was going to say God, but really YouTube made the join button below the video on YouTube, and we made tyt.com/join. Become a member, and you'll be able to call in and ask me questions, not just today, but on Mondays going forward. So we're gonna go over the bonus episode now for just the members, but keep the calls coming. We'll see you there.